is in the house. Yeah, 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 yeah. We are kicking it with Auntie Leah. Yeah, let's get it, let's do it, let's go. Yeah, let's go, let's get it with Auntie Leah. Yeah, yeah, come on, let's do it. Nothing better than kicking it with Auntie Leah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Auntie Leah is in the house. Yeah, 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 yeah. We are kicking it with Auntie Leah. Yeah, let's get it, let's do it. Come on in. Come on in now. So Auntie Leah can do a thing. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mississippi. Salute. Welcome back to Kicking It with Auntie Leah and the Truth Gang. Everybody please share the
Nolan
live,
Xavier
like
Wells.
the live, know that we are here.
They brought his phone home, but they left somebody's
Give us a couple
son
of minutes.
behind.
We're just gonna wait for some more people to come
We
in and
want
listen to the
every
words of the song.
Mississippi,
Cough 'em up, Mississippi.
cough 'em up, cough 'em up.
Everybody please like the live and share the live. I'm sharing it right now.
Yeah. 4th of July, headed out in the sun. 3 boats on the water, but they came back -1. Nolan was 18 with his whole life plan. College football dreams and the future in his hands. They went to Horn Island, everybody
Gang
there
in the
together.
building.
Sun on the coast, clear summertime weather. But something went wrong before the end of the day. When the
Everybody
boats left
drop
the
justice
island,
for
Nolan
Nolan Wells
somehow
in the
stayed.
comments.
They said he made a choice,
They
said
think
he
that we gonna
wanted
shut
to
up.
remain,
We not
but he
gonna shut
cannot
up.
tell his side, so the question still remains.
Salute
Why
to
would he stay
everybody in
without
the
his
back.
keys or his phone? Why would
Just give us a
everybody
few
leave and
minutes. We wait
assume he made it home?
Who was the last one to see him on the sand?
remind
Who
us,
counted
salute.
every person for the boats left land? Everybody got a story, but the timeline got a hold. Mississippi tell Christine what happened to her soul.
Her baby didn't come home. Her baby couldn't call. Everybody had an answer.
Right now I'm sharing the live.
But
You know
nobody
it's
knew
here.
it all. If you were there with Nolan,
We not shutting up no time
with the
soon.
truth.
Salute everybody in the back. Hey,
Mother needs an
justice for
answer.
Nolan Wells.
What happened to her youth?
Cough 'em
Let's
up,
go,
cough
let's
'em
go,
up,
let's
cough
go.
'em up.
Cough 'em up.
Mississippi, cough 'em up this time. Bring them boys forward, put the truth on the line. We are not declaring guilt, we are demanding facts. Tell us what happened to Nolan and don't hold
Thank you
nothing
so
back.
much.
Cough 'em
Thank you
up,
so much
Mississippi.
for the
Every
gifts.
phone and every boat,
Guys,
every
we
picture,
can
every
receive
message, every
super
word that they
gifts and
spoke.
cash out
His
to
mother
around
needs the
$4 less
truth.
than
His
now.
mother needs the
It's
truth.
not
Cough 'em up,
required.
Mississippi. Tell us what happened to
So we
Nolan
thank you. Hey,
Wells.
hey.
Cough up the truth.
They need to
Bring
cough it
every
up, don't
hidden
they?
detail to the light.
Give us about 2 more minutes and then we'll get started, y'all.
Mississippi,
I'm just
get
waiting
it
on some
right
more people to
this
come
time.
in.
4:31, they reportedly pulled away. But when was Nolan last
I'd
independently
be
seen that
happy.
day?
Don't even know
There's a
why you
window
stopped
in the
by.
timeline, questions in between. What
Just
happened
for
after
Nolan Wells.
four and what did witnesses see? One boat taking water,
You don't
bills
seem to be
pumped
too
acting
happy
strange.
today.
A call went out for help, then the energy seemed to change. Voices in the background, confusion on the line. Who was
All
on
right,
which
just a
vessel
couple
at
more
that
minutes. Shout out to
exact time?
everybody
They
from
reached the
Bush's.
mainland,
Get the
moved
light
from
to
place
live,
to
that'd be
place, but
great.
nobody turned around to search the island for his face. His mother
Let me see.
knew a baby would not vanish on his own. After
one more
midnight, she
minute and then we'll
reported
get
that her
started.
son had not come home. Search teams hit the water when
waiting
the
on
morning brought the
more
light.
people to come
Then
in.
July 6th delivered news and
Waiting on
shattered
the
every
family to
life.
get here.
Nolan's body found,
You know, they
but
don't
the
like to
questions
send out my
only grew. Finding
notification.
him was not the same. It's
Salute
finding
60
out the
people
truth.
in the
Her
building.
baby didn't come home. Her baby couldn't call.
Justice for
Everybody
Nolan
had
Wells.
an answer, but nobody
Justice for
knew
Kendrick
it
Johnson.
all.
Hey.
If you were
Justice
there
for
with
Teron
Nolan,
Evans
yeah, come forward with
Justice.
the truth. A mother
Justice.
needs an answer.
Justice.
What happened to you?
Cough 'em up, cough 'em up, cough 'em up.
Cough 'em up,
Mississippi, cough 'em up this
We're not
time.
going for it
Bring
this
them
time.
boys forward, put the truth
Justice
on
for
the
Paige
line. We are
Fortune.
not declaring guilt, we
Salute,
are
salute
demanding facts. Tell
everybody
us what
in the
happened to
building.
Nolan and don't hold nothing back. Cough 'em
Why are they so
every phone,
quiet?
every boat, every picture, every message, every
Why are they
word
trying
that
to
they spoke.
silence
His
us?
mother needs the truth. His father needs
We'll
the
never be
truth.
silent.
From up Mississippi, tell us what happened to Nolan Wells. Cough up the truth. Bring every hidden detail to the light. Cough up the truth.
All right, guys.
Mississippi, get it
Thank you
right
so
this
much.
time.
Thank you so much.
They did the autopsy, held the
Thank you
findings for
so
review.
much. I appreciate you for stopping by the channel. Tonight, we're going to get right into talking about Nolan Wells. Also talking about Tasia. Tasia Fortune is the young lady that was found hanging in the tree a few days ago in Jackson, Mississippi. You know, they made an arrest in her situation, but you got people and trolls in the comments that are trying to say that he was arrested for the unaliving of Tasia. That is not actually what it said. It said he was arrested for unrelated charges. And I'm not convinced that that man did anything. I don't know. I don't know the facts. Let me pull it up so you can see. It is a black man that they state was in an argument with Tasia before her unaliving. So they interviewed him. He said he didn't do it, but because he was a felon with a weapon, they locked him up for that. It's hard for me. I'm not saying that it's impossible because I do not know. I do not know what happened, okay, in her case. But the fact that they said that they had to use a firefighter's ladder to get up to where she was to bring her down is kind of hard for me to believe. Not saying it's impossible that one person could pull her up in the tree. Okay, so this is the man that they arrested, but it clearly states that it was for an unrelated charge. And the article also stated that his name is Terrence Anderson, that the authorities could not confirm that he was a person of interest. Yet you have people in the comments and on social media saying that he is a person of interest. And we just got to be careful, right? Because in my opinion, it could be a distraction. It could be a deflection, if that makes sense. An attempt to take our minds off of Nolan Wells and to join in on a campaign to say a black man is the one that unalived Tasia, which he could have. I'm not saying he didn't. I don't know what happened. But we definitely need to just be careful about what we believe, and we need to be careful about what we put out there. Because now you got the trolls in the comments. Hey, my Archangel Michael, I told you it was black people. I told you black people are hanging black people. You guys are always trying to blame white people. Okay, a distraction. A distraction. Let's do a little roll call. Let's do a little roll call before we get started. Salute, Tasha. Thank you so much for being here. Demaria's in the building. Thank you so much. That's right, Truth Gang. Ramonda's in the building. Thank you so much for being here. Tasha, again, that's right. You mod up. And we have Be Happy Who's Not Happy. My father's work. He's not. I don't even know why he's here. Talking about go listen to some heavy metal. I'm not into that. Salute, Lisa. Hey, Theo, thank you so much for being here, nephew. Nephew be on auntie ass when I don't go live. So I need to get it together. I'll be tired sometimes, y'all. It's not my full-time job. I got a job, you know. I do this part-time. Salute, Princess. Thank you so much. And my number one moderator in the building, Archangel Michael. Salute everybody that is here. So let's just get right into the show. Let's get right into the show. What I am about to show you is a clip. It was a news segment from, I'm not good. It's News Nation. And they're trying to spin the narrative with this audio. They are trying everything in them to throw shots at what we heard. But we know what we heard. My ears didn't deceive me. So let's just take a look at this bullshacky. Fair Use Act in effect. I am showing this clip for educational purposes only. And that's it.
Tonight, we've got 3 major new developments in the mysterious death of Nolan Wells. First up, witnesses reportedly told investigators Wells had been drinking heavily with friends on Horn Island before he disappeared. That's according to a document with preliminary information from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. It was obtained by ABC News. Second, Nolan's friends have long said that he chose to remain on Horn Island after their boat left. Remember, he was talking to a young lady. Well, now TMZ reports that sources with direct knowledge of the investigation say that at least 2 witnesses told law enforcement they saw Nolan on the island after that boat departed.
Now, let's be clear. There is a photo going around, and they are trying to say that it is Nolan. That photo has not been confirmed as being Nolan Wells, and it does not look like Nolan Wells, not one bit. I'll pull up that photo. Let's keep watching, but I wanted to set the record straight. They're trying to say that this black man, sorry about that, in dark blue shorts with facial hair is Nolan Wells, but it's all his mother came out. Well, not the man's mother, but the child, well, not child, but the other guy that he was with, the mother of him came out and said that is not Nolan Wells. But they're still trying to push this narrative for some reason. I'm going to find that photo. Let's keep going with this video while I search for that photo. It is not Nolan.
We haven't independently verified those claims. Authorities have not publicly confirmed them, but you can see why it's significant. Third, we've played brief excerpts of this distress call that were made from the boat on the show before, but now there is a longer version of the recording that has been released by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. It was aired by multiple local news outlets. In the call, a teen tells a sea tow dispatcher that the boat's bilge pump has failed, that the boat is sinking. And throughout the call, you can hear this commotion and multiple voices in the background. TMZ then took that same recording and enhanced the audio. The outlet says that some people believe that when you hear this or when you listen to it, they can hear, "Is he dead?" along with other phrases, including "Nolan, check his chest, wake up." So we want to play you clips from both versions. First, here's the original recording.
Detail Assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description?
Okay, now here's TMZ's enhanced version of that same recording.
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership. Shut the fuck up!
So what exactly did we just hear? I want to go to Robert Freed, digital forensics expert who spent more than 2 decades analyzing electronic evidence. He's the executive vice president of forensics and chief investigative officer at Page One. He's trained law enforcement agencies across the country in digital forensics and computer crime investigations. Thanks for taking the time. I want to take this step by step.
Absolutely.
So first of all, you analyzed both versions. What were you able or not able to determine?
Well, you can obviously look at just the totality of both versions and see that there's a time difference right away. One's 8.5 minutes, the other one's 8 minutes and 50 seconds. And what we actually did was we extracted or preserved the videos from the specific websites, the TMZ, as well as the WAFB website. And then what we were able to do there is take a digital fingerprint MD5 hash value of those 2 videos. They were obviously different, which means that they have different content. And then, we went in and we looked at the transcript that was able to be gleaned from both versions. And
so now this goes to the main question. In those transcripts, from your analysis, does anyone say, "Is he dead? Check his chest. Nolan, wake up"? anything like that?
No, it's very distorted, even if you hear it from the original to even the.
First of all, yes, he did. We heard it. We heard it. And I don't know why there's a campaign going on right now. Well, we all know why. We all know why. They really are trying to cover this up allegedly, but we heard what we heard. And we heard things prior to Janetta Brantley enhancing or cleaning up. Not even, she didn't alter the video or use the audio or use AI at all. She explained in detail what she did. So now we have this campaign going around with this man right here. He's the same man that was on other shows trying to say that we didn't hear what we heard. Diabolical.
The audio enhancement, it's still very difficult for some of the software that we use to even pick up
Where's the FBI?
those types of words. And there was nothing like that close to it in the transcriptions that we saw.
Is there a danger in someone telling you what to listen for? Do you go in with the preconceived, I don't know if the word is biased, but you're going in to look for those words and maybe you're hearing things that your mind is telling you that's what it is when it's really not?
Absolutely. When I first heard about some of the words that were apparently heard, my mind was automatically going to that as well. Am I going to hear those? Things like that. So my perception is, okay, let me hear what everybody's talking about and let's go down to, the specifics of it from a forensic analysis perspective. Can I actually transcribe those specific words as well from what's being provided to me?
So what do you think law enforcement's doing with this audio? If you were part of the investigation, what would you do with this audio now?
I would want to go and make sure that I have the data from the original source. What generated this audio recording? Let me go to the source. Because if I'm looking at different variations, you can even see, Jesse, that there's redactions in those audio recordings. There's account numbers that were shared. There were phone numbers. All that stuff is different than the original. I want to see the original, and I want to look at the metadata of the original.
So in other words, just real quick, if somebody said their phone number, there could be something in the background that could be interesting. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Robert Freed, thanks so much.
With the autopsy results inconclusive, rumors continue to swirl around the death of Nolan Wells, the 18-year-old who was found dead after boating with his friends on 4th of July.
Okay, so before we continue this, let me go ahead and show you a clip of Nancy Grace because I couldn't find the actual photo yet. I am still looking for it, but she actually did say that doesn't look like Nolan. But they're trying to convince us that this is Nolan, the one right here by this. They blurred the faces. I don't know why they would blur the faces, but they did blur their faces. But let's just listen to what Nancy said real quick.
Okay. I'm going to have to bring in NASA to enhance this. Brian Trasher, does this guy have facial hair? That's not Nolan.
Again, we couldn't verify, but we could tell that it was an African-American male on the beach wearing blue swim trunks. We thought that was enough to say.
First of all, this person doesn't even, if you can blow up, find the photo and I'll find it and blow it up. That person doesn't even look like a male. It looks like a woman, to be honest, because it looks like that this woman has a top on. But you can hear in this video, the person that she's talking to really is attempting to insert that this possibly could be Nolan seen on Horn Island after 4:30. We're not believing it. We're not buying it, but let's keep going.
Okay, it's possible, but we did
those
like
are dark blue.
Skin tone.
Aren't those deep dark blue?
It looks like it, but Nancy, I don't know if this picture's been enhanced. I don't know if it's been filtered. You know what I'm saying? So again, that's the whole reason why we couldn't corroborate, but it was like, okay. And also too, this does create a good picture of a flotilla of boats. So where if we were looking for a particular one, it was a good one to hang on to. So again, fully disclosing that we could not definitively say whether that was him or not. Probably not.
But we need it for the investigation. We need it. And you provided it.
Rule it out.
You got it.
Use it to rule it out.
Okay, so is this Nolan? If it is Nolan, this is at 4:50 and proves he's still on the island when the other boat, the Triton, leaves. I don't think this is Nolan. Okay.
Me neither. Me neither, Nancy. I don't think that is Nolan at all. What do you all think? Do you think that that was Nolan? I most definitely do not believe that that is Nolan Wells at all. So the fact that they're out there trying to gaslight us, trying to deflect, trying to just do everything to throw us off of what we know is going on is diabolical, crazy work. Let's get back to the other clips so we can finish watching News Nation's little segment. But then I got some other things. We have an ex-Army interrogator that broke down Warren's interview with somebody called him BT Coon. I love that. I think it was Dr. Omar who called Tatum BT Coon. We're going to watch this interview with the Art of Dialogue as well. So we got some good things, planned tonight that we're going to talk about. What we're not going to do is we're not going to stop talking about Nolan. What we're not going to do is we're not going to change the subject. What we're not going to do is be afraid of defamation lawsuits, because my opinion is my opinion. All right, so let's get back to it. And here we are. Take all of this stuff right here with a grain of salt. The news media's out there. Now they're in cahoots. And to me, they're just trying to steer the narrative to a different situation. Let's go.
July weekend. Wells' parents and their attorney, Ben Crump, spoke with Chris Cuomo earlier tonight, and Nolan's mother said there's only one question she wants answered. Watch.
At the end of the day, we would want what any parent would want, which is answers to find out what happened.
They also listened to part of an interview that Brandon Tatum did with one of Nolan's friends, and here's how Nolan's stepfather responded to it.
You heard that kid Trace in the interview say that he was friends with
Why do they keep calling Elmore Nolan's stepfather? What evidence has Christine or Elmore came out, or Ben Crump ever came out and said that Elmore is Nolan's stepfather? I mean, they are really, really trying to make this family look bad. They're trying to degrade his mother instead of trying to figure out what really happened to Nolan Wells. Now the media has picked up on calling Elmore Nolan's stepfather. I have not found any proof of that. If you guys have, can you please point me to the proof? Not that it would make a difference. I wouldn't care. So why are you saying stepfather? Ooh, that just pissed me off.
Nolan, and that you guys would know him. Do you know him? Do you recognize him?
No, I don't. Just because you park your vehicle in someone's yard doesn't mean that they have to know you. Sounds more to me like he's more focused on getting people to know him and getting away from the fact that his so-called best friend is not here anymore.
Brandon Tatum is the host of the Officer Tatum Show, and like I just mentioned, he spoke with some of Nolan's friends. He joins us now. Brandon, thank you for being here. So first, just your reaction to Nolan's stepfather saying he doesn't recognize his friend Trace, who you interviewed, basically alleging that he didn't know him very well at all, if at all.
It's slightly disappointing. I mean, I don't know these people, to be honest. I don't know who's really friends or not. I'm just going off of what Trayston told me. But Trayston did share pictures of him with Nolan at prom. He told me he not only just parked the car outside, he had been over Nolan's house multiple times, and he also gave Nolan a ride to school on multiple occasions. So it's very confusing. I don't know why a young man would say that he's friends and literally be emotional when he talked about Nolan. I mean, he literally cried and teared up off.
He literally had no emotion whatsoever. Why do you guys keep trying to make us see something different? He is sitting on that couch, dry-eyed, in defensive mode. Please stop the cat. BT Coon.
Camera. And I felt like it was very genuine. And for the parents to say that they don't know him at all and won't even consider the fact that he believed he was friends with Nolan, it's very shocking to me, and I don't know if they're being genuine because you don't always know your children's friends,
right?
Or are they still trying to hold on to this agenda that no one who disagrees with the narrative of racism can possibly be associated with them because it destroys their money. Well, I'm not saying the parents' money grift, but Benjamin Crump's money grift.
Yeah, I mean, we heard from Nolan's parents and of course his mother. Any parent would want to know what happened, and she expressed that. But
so you're going to say that Ben Crump is on a money grift, but you're not going to say that the kids that launched a GoSendMe that is now over $200,000 is not on a money grift. They're not the victims. They actually should have joined in with the family. If they were innocent, and if they didn't do, and I'm not saying that they're not innocent, because I don't know yet for a fact, but I definitely wouldn't have launched a GoSendMe to make money and using my friends, supposedly my friend's name, just to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't even want to hear from this dude, but we have to keep listening.
There are motives with Ben Crump and his history. There are lawsuits now suing his friends and social media companies fueled by Ben Crump. Do you think that he's helping this family or hurting them in their quest for answers?
Well, Katie, I think he's destroying the reputation of this family and also hurting this investigation. The fact that he put out the autopsy prematurely when law enforcement didn't even put out the autopsy it can convolute the investigation, because now when you interview witnesses, you don't know if they are saying things because they saw it on television or have they genuinely had an experience. Only they would have if they were actually there at the scene. And then also, I want to believe his mother. I don't have any reason necessarily, because I don't know her personally, to believe that she would just lie. But when I look at the facts, why wouldn't she communicate with with Warren and their family? They showed me text messages. They showed me phone calls where they called and reached out to her. And if I personally want to know what happened to my child, the first person I'm going to talk to is the people who last saw him alive. I don't understand why they take the position of saying it's us versus y'all. And now you want to subpoena phones and do things like that, which are going to take, I don't know, months for it to come out. And they may not even be granted. I mean, you got to think Nolan was an adult. He wasn't a kid. So some of these social media platforms may not even grant them access to his account if they don't have somewhat of a legal search warrant. So I just wish that they would have come together as a community and got to the bottom of this, got information, and then shared it to the public instead of, making it a divisive thing up front.
Yeah. Brandon, we're still waiting on the toxicology report, but from interviews with Nolan's friends, we do know that drinking heavily was involved, and that Nolan Wells was drinking. And you have on good authority that drugs potentially could have been involved as well. You also visited the island. Just what are your takeaways from what we know about the conditions there and the status of the investigation?
Well, at this point, and I always encourage people to wait until the full investigation is out before you make a conclusion or a determination of whether somebody's guilty or not. Going out to Horn Island was very revealing to me, because the initial statements from people who are talking about this, especially the Nolan Wells family, that they were acting as if they just dropped Nolan off at an abandoned island where no one was around to watch him get murdered or something. And then now you go and look at it, you go, well, no, there was tons of people there. That gives me encouragement that somebody saw what happens, but it also proves in many ways that they didn't just abandon him as if he was a little kid on the island by himself. So
how did they not abandon him? Officer Tatum, BT Coon, whatever you want to call him. How did they not abandon him? They left him on an island with no means to communicate with the mainland. How is that not abandonment? You make zero sense. I cannot listen. I can't with this guy.
Seeing the island going there gave me a pretty good understanding about what happened.
Well, certainly injecting race, and we don't have all the facts either, is not helpful. And we will continue to watch this. Brandon Tatum, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your accounting of it.
Katie, thank you for having me on.
Good to see you.
Robert Freed, Executive Vice President, Forensics, and Chief Investigative Officer at Page One, who has spent more than 2 decades analyzing digital evidence, training law enforcement agencies across the country in digital forensics and computer crime investigations. And it was great to have you on the other night. We've got a lot to talk about it. So, this is interesting. The family's attorneys, they're asking for everything, like the direct messages, the GPS data, the login histories, the IP addresses. Realistically, by the way, do all these companies really save and track down all this type of information? Because I was thinking about the Nancy Guthrie case, and there was a whole issue about that stuff being preserved.
Yeah, it all depends, Jesse. It depends on their own policies and procedures in-house there. But, you know, there's good information that may be gleaned from a subpoena. You may be able to get usernames. You may be able to get information related to verified email addresses, things like that. But, you know, you're not going to get the content a lot of the times of this you know, data, this communication that they may be after ultimately to try to figure out, you know, communications and other things.
I'm going to call it naive. If someone was impersonating his accounts, would you know it? Does it track your location? Does it track the phone? All these apps track the phone, the location, the movements. I mean, those are the things I think are relevant. And by the way, whether anything was deleted.
Yeah, all these apps have different ways that they communicate. So some of them actually track your location, like you said. You know, movements is obviously a lot of important things there, where people are using fitness apps and trying to share their location. I'll be there soon. We talked about Life 360. There's a lot of this stuff that's out there that allows you to share your movements, establish, you know, timelines, when you're going to be there. There's Glimpse. There's all these different apps. You know, the reality is these apps also need to be configured by the user. There's default, and then the user can go in there and say, hey, you know what? We got into a fight last week. I'm just going to take you off Life 360. You know, so the user has some flexibility, and it all depends on what type of subscription they may have as well.
Right.
Are they paying for it?
I mean, that's the whole Nancy Guthrie situation, 100%. If you pay for it, whether that's going to be saved. If you delete something, can it always be recovered, and can you know when it was deleted?
So think about all the different apps that are out there, right? WhatsApp, Snapchat, they're designed.
This is a good question from Carlos. He said, I thought Nolan's friend had his phone and his mother tracked the phone to their home. Right. Why didn't Warren tell Christine that they had Nolan's phone when he texted her? Why did Christine have to track the phone when Warren said out of his own mouth that he contacted Christine asking if she talked to Nolan? You have the phone, but you didn't say anything about it. You had to allow her to track the, y'all, this is disgusting. Let's keep going.
Disgusting. To be ephemeral. They delete after a period. So a lot of these companies, you know, they thrive on people wanting to have private communication. I once had a conversation with somebody who said, I'll only talk to you with Signal. And that's because it disappears and you can set it to disappear. So again, it depends on how these are configured. Some do store the data on the local device, some store it on the server. Once it's deleted, it's likely deleted from the server.
Robert, you know, a big question in this case is how thorough law enforcement is, right? The family distrusts that they're getting the full answer. Please tell me that law enforcement did this already. Please tell me that they went through all these apps and got them through a warrant.
I sure hope so. There's a couple different ways that data can be analyzed. The first way is an advanced logical collection that's collecting everything local on the device. And then there's a full file system extraction, which gives you the ability to look at encrypted databases and other ephemeral messaging apps as well. Hopefully they were able to do this I know the mother has been in possession of the phone. It's whether or not she had the PIN code for it, because if you don't have the PIN code, that's another layer that you have to basically go and crack essentially before you can access it. And some of these manufacturers, they're really stuck on security. So you have to be a person that is a legacy contact to be able to get into these accounts, even after somebody passes.
It's another development. Again, hopefully the family is going to get the answers that they need. Robert Freed, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office announced that it has completed both Wells' autopsy and toxicology report, but those results are going to stay sealed until the grand jury gets the case. And while the medical findings are off limits, we know Wells' family is doing everything they can to get other information. Nolan's mother, for example, subpoenaed Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, Life360, seeking his messages, photos, GPS data as she pushes for answers as to what happened to her son. What are they going to learn? I want to ask digital forensics analyst Morgan Wright to talk about this. Morgan, good to see you. I have a lot of questions. So first of all, if they get all these records, okay, assuming that the companies don't put up a legal fight, if they get everything they're looking for, best case scenario, what is that going to tell them about what happened to Nolan?
That's a good question, Jesse. The thing I would do is I would take all of that information, I would map it against the GPS we have from the boat, when it left, when it slowed down, when it sped back up, map that with the call, and then map all of the digital media and the time and date stamps and location to that. So you can kind of create like a kaleidoscope, just a compendium of things that show you the timeline. When were pictures taken? What kind of data is there? Was he seen on the island? Was he not? Was he seen on the boat? So, we don't know what we know until they get this information, but I would start with the timeline. I would map the call against the GPS location and then map the social media when you get it to that.
Will they know if information has been deleted from any of the apps from the phone and when it was deleted? Because if they can create a timeline, if he was no longer on the boat and he was on Horn Island, would they be able to know what was deleted and when it was deleted?
Yeah, there's a couple companies out there. One that a lot of people have heard about, Celebrite. They do do a lot of great work on digital forensics, extraction. So yeah, if as long as it hasn't been tampered with or people haven't gotten in there looking around, that's part of the problem, right? Anytime you go in there, you start changing the footprint of what that device was. You want it in the pristine state, but Celebrite could still, an extraction like that could tell you what was there. And most of the time, depending on the operating system, who logged in and how, could tell you what was deleted, when it was deleted. That would give you some ideas if it was deleted. I'm not saying it was, but if it was, a Celebrite report could give you a lot of good facts.
There was news that came out that the family has also issued preservation notices to the family members of Nolan's friends, and I believe investigative agencies as well. My legal point of view, you're putting the pieces in place for a potential lawsuit. I've always wondered, if you go through the lawsuit route, you go through discovery, can they get answers that they may not get through the criminal investigation, the legal investigation, the law enforcement investigation? What kind of data could they get there, and how would that help them in their search for answers?
Well, look, yeah, first of all, the preservation notice, when I was a detective, we did the same thing too. It just says, don't delete the records, don't do anything. Spoilage is indication of guilt. I mean, that can be inferred in a court. So I think so far the families are all cooperating from what the record shows. So, and then what you would look at is look for communications, look for text messages, look for anything that shows contemporaneous texts or communications that might be tied with the disappearance of Nolan, when he disappeared, or was he seen? Did anybody say, I saw him? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can get. But when you do that, that's a civil suit, right? So you can get a lot of information in discovery in a civil suit, but the grand jury can get a lot more information because they have full subpoena power, including the toxicology, including the autopsy.
By the way, I love that our digital guy here almost froze. I mean, seems almost ironic, but we're good. We got you, Morgan. I want to play you something. This was a big piece of news this week. So Nolan Wells' family hired an audio engineer to review this distress call that was made from the boat that day. I want to play, and I'll tell you what, I'm getting word. Let's just take a break. Stay with me. We'll talk about it on the other side.
You got it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right.
The reason why he had to stop was because he lied. Because Nolan Wells did not hire Jeanette Brantley. She was not. His family did not. So that's why he got cut off. We're not dumb. That's why you had to all of a sudden go. okay, because you were about to lie. She did it for free. She did it because she wanted to hear and clear it up. And she explained it. So you didn't know what you was talking about. Get your facts straight first. All right, guys. So let's get into Dr. Umar's interview that he gave to the Art of Dialogue, because he really has some very good questions and he brought up some good points. So I want to listen to that real quick. Let's just get into it. We are obviously not going to listen to the entire interview. It's an hour long, but I want to listen to just a little bit of it. I think that he has some very good points and questions for Warren about that.
I knew the YouTubian struggle streamers were going to run with it. I knew.
Dr. Umar, happy to have you back, man. What you been up to, yo? It's been a while, yo, since I had you on the platform.
Yes, just taking care of business, fighting for the school, doing what I do, helping the parents with their children, raising a consciousness. The work never stops. The work never stops.
Yes, indeed, man. Had to bring you back on. The people, they've been asking me to bring you back on for the longest, man. So it was only right to bring you back on. It's so much I want to talk to you about, though, man. It's so much to get into that I want to get your take on. Nolan Wells, how you feel about that situation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nolan Wells. When the case first broke, Art, I just kind of sat back because I knew the YouTubian struggle streamers were going to run with it. I knew the white liberals on YouTube were going to run with it. I knew the white racists on YouTube were going to run with it, and everybody in between. It hurts my heart for Sister Christine, Nolan's mother, to have to see so many people using her son's name and crisis and tragedy for clickbait. And that's one of the biggest reasons, Art, I kind of stood back. It almost reminded me of the Freddie Gray police unaliving in Baltimore back during the Barack Obama era. When Freddie Gray lost his life to those police in Baltimore, everybody rushed to Baltimore. They did the same thing with Michael Brown in Ferguson, not because they necessarily cared about the tragedy, but because they wanted to benefit personally from it. And so I stayed away from Ferguson. I stayed away from Baltimore, and I stayed away from the Nolan Wells situation for a while because I didn't want to look like so many other people who just jumped in to have something to say, to use that young man's loss of life for clickbait and views. Now that it's been over a month since he lost his life, I think it's okay for me to speak now because everyone else has kind of given their opinion, their analysis, their synopsis, and their feeling on the situation. So I'm going to give mine. First of all, Nolan Wells, Javon, and I want Javon to hear this, and I want any other Black person who was on Devil Horns Island that day to hear this. And I want any Black person who was celebrating the 4th of July to hear this. No Black person, no Black freedman, no Black immigrant, no member of the Black race at all should have been celebrating July 4th, 2026. No one should have been celebrating America's 250th solar return. And why? Because our ancestors were still enslaved on July 4th, 1776. So why are we on White Devil Horns Island anyway, celebrating George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton and all these other white supremacists and slave masters? Why are we even celebrating them anyway? Nolan shouldn't have been out there. Javon shouldn't have been out there. No Black person should have been celebrating the 4th of July, period. We would be enslaved for almost another century after America got her independence. So what are we celebrating for? To celebrate the 4th of July as an African is to celebrate the enslavement of your ancestors and the freedom of your slave masters. It makes no sense. Now, with that being said, I'm not blaming Nolan in any way, shape, form, or fashion for his loss of life. I'm just simply saying he shouldn't have been out there. Now let's take a closer look at this, Art. According to what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and what I've read, Nolan, Warren, Wyatt, and Trayston left for Horn Island the morning of July 4th. According to Warren's own words that he offered during an interview with Officer B.T. Coon, that's Coon as in C-U-N-E, Coon as in K-H-E-W-N, Coon as in K-U-H-N, Coon as in C-O-N-N. So Warren did a sit down with Officer B.T. Coon. And as we all know, B.T. Coon is White YouTube's pet monkey. He's White YouTube's pet monkey. So Warren sat down for an interview with White YouTube's pet monkey. And he said that they left for Horns Island the morning of July the 4th, and that it was approximately 30 of them spread across 3 boats. Approximately 30 youth spread across 3 boats. They all went to Horn Island together. They arrived at approximately 11:30. So they left around 9-ish, 8, 9-ish, whatever the case may be. They left the morning of July 4th. They arrived on White Devil's Horn Island at about 11:30. So 3 boats, 30 youth, they went together. I'm not clear on whether the 3 boats came back together or not. That's another question that I have, Art. Did they come back together the same way they left together? Because I'm treating all 30 of those white youth and all 3 of those ships as crime scenes and as suspects. All 3 ships are potential crime scenes. All 3 boats are potential crime scenes, and all 30 youth are potential suspects. I don't know why Jackson County Sheriff Ledbetter or Jackson County District Attorney Mulrath, I don't know why they decided to separate the boat that Nolan was on. Warren's boat, I don't know why they separated that boat from the other 2 for purposes of investigation and analysis, because those 3 boats operated as a team. And since they went out there as a team, and it hasn't been made clear to me whether or not they came back together as a team, all 30 white youth and all 3 boats should have been part of this investigation, not just the 1 boat. That is my first big issue with this case. Who decided to separate the other 2 boats and the other 20 or so youth? I got a problem with that, Art, because according to the Cajun Navy, they have no GPS information on the other 2 boats, Art. They have no GPS information on the other 2 boats. Now let's get into this. According to Warren and Nolan's other so-called white friends, they decided to leave the island around 4:30. So they were roughly on White Devil's Horn Island from 11:30 to 4:30. That is about 5 hours. About 5 hours. Now, one question that has to be asked, Art, why did y'all leave so soon? Because they party on Horn Island all day long. Y'all didn't leave at sunset. Y'all didn't leave at sundown. Y'all left after only being there 5 hours. That's a little suspicious, Art. And I haven't heard anybody ask any of them, why did y'all decide to leave after only being there for 5 hours? Did y'all plan to only be on White Devil's Horn Island for 5 hours? Why did y'all leave at that time?
That is a very good question, guys. Think about it. It was the 4th of July. Everybody was on the island to celebrate. Why did they leave so early? It's a good question, Dr. Umar.
But we'll deal with that later. So then let's listen to Javon, Nolan's other best friend. Now, another problem I got with this whole story, Art, is Nolan allegedly had too many best friends. I'm trying to find out, how does Nolan have so many best friends? And why did all of these so-called best friends leave their best friend on White Devil's Horn Island without his cell phone and keys?
Another good point. Because in our culture, we don't do that. I don't care about you saying he's a grown man, he made the decision to stay back. In our culture, and you may not understand it, we do not leave people behind. We come back with who we go with. And that's just that. Let's keep going.
I'm trying to figure this out. So Javon claims he's Nolan's best friend. Warren claims he's Nolan's best friend. And Trayston allegedly claims that he's Warren's best friend. So did Warren have three best friends? Excuse me. Did Nolan have three best friends? Did Nolan have 13 best friends? Did Nolan have 30 best friends? Because if Javon is the best friend of Nolan, and if Warren is the best friend of Nolan, and if Trayston is the best friend of Nolan, exactly how many best friends did Nolan have?
That's a good question.
Are y'all making this up? Who did Nolan tell Warren was his best friend? Who did Nolan ever tell Trayston was his best friend? I'm not going to question.
I can tell you this. Best friends know each other's family. Best friends know the parents, right? That's what best friends are. So they are throwing around this best friend title to gaslight the world when it comes to Nolan Wells. They were not best friends because I'm not leaving my best friend behind on a remote island without his phone, keys, and a for sure way back. Let's get back into it, guys. Let's be realistic. Our culture's different.
Javon, because he's a brother. And I do believe that there's a strong chance that they may have been best friends. And I say that not only because Javon is a brother, Art, but I also felt that Javon, through the investigation team and alley-oop, with some of the answers that he gave on TMZ. Some of Javon's answers, in my opinion, kind of made it clear to me he actually cared about Nolan. He actually cared about Nolan. I believe Javon actually cared about Nolan. And because of that, I'm willing to say that Javon may have actually been Nolan's best friend. I wish somebody would have asked Javon, Art, to your knowledge, has Nolan ever called Warren his best friend? Has Nolan ever called Trayston his best friend? To your knowledge, Javon, has Nolan ever told you that Warren and Trayston were best friends of his? Because, Art, I'm having a problem with this three best friend narrative. Okay? I used to be 18 years old. You might have one best friend. You may have two. Don't get me wrong. If you all hang in a pack, you could have three best friends. But according to Javon's own words, Art, he didn't really hang around with them other guys too much. That's what I allegedly thought I heard him say. He didn't hang around with them guys too much. So if you got 2 or 3 or 4 best friends, you guys normally travel as a group. Javon seemed like he kind of spent most of his time with Nolan alone, just the two of them, not with Trayston and Warren. Although he knew them, it didn't appear that he hung out with them on the regular. So how could they all then be best friends? It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying it's unlikely. So, according to Javon, Art, he saw Nolan at 3:40 on the island. According to Javon, what I heard him say to TMZ allegedly was that he had another friend who was involved in an altercation and that he left Nolan at about 3:40 to go check on his buddy, because according to Javon, his buddy was on another ship and the parents of whomever on this other ship were trying to get him off the island because he was crashing out. He never said who this friend was. He never exactly told us what happened. But he said, I left at 3:40 to go check on my friend on another boat because, quote unquote, well, these are not his words, I'm paraphrasing. He was kind of wilding out, crashing out, and he needed to help calm him down. I'm paraphrasing. He said when he got back, Nolan was nowhere to be found, and I'm paraphrasing. And Nolan's boat that he came on, Warren's boat, the so-called Big Daddy, the 22-foot Triton, had already left the scene. So according to Javon, I left Nolan at 3:40 to go deal with another situation. I came back, he was gone. According to Katie, the white girl who Nolan's white best friends are trying to use as an alibi in this situation. Okay, because they claim, and Warren said the same thing to Officer B.T. Coon when he spoke with him. They claim that Nolan told them, I'm going to hang back on this island and talk to Katie. You guys go ahead and I'll get back however I get back. Again, I'm paraphrasing. But guess what? We learned through Katie's sister that Katie said she has no knowledge of Nolan ever saying that.
Now, make that make sense. Warren and them are saying that Nolan willingly stayed behind to hang with Katie. Katie is saying, no, I spoke with him for a few minutes, but he went back with his friends and got on the boat because they were leaving. That needs to be deeply investigated. All of these lies these children are telling, the discrepancies in their testimonies or whatever, their interviews, because we don't know if they testified against anybody. We don't know. It just needs to be scrutinized. Let's keep going.
In fact, Katie said, Art, that Nolan told her, I got to get ready to head back to the boat because my friends are leaving soon. That don't sound like somebody who plans on staying, Art. Okay? According to her sister, Katie said Nolan told Katie, it's time for me to head back to the boat because my friends are going to be leaving soon. As far as I'm concerned, Art, Javon and Katie both threw us an alley-oop.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way because I see the comments, and the comments, they're irrelevant to what Dr. Umar is talking about right now. Stop talking about a school and stop attacking somebody. We're trying to pay attention to what he's saying. Now I'm gonna start blocking you idiots that are in my chat. Stay on topic. Jesus.
Avon and Katie are throwing Sheriff Ledbetter of Jackson County an alley-oop because neither one of them are corroborating the story of Nolan's white friends on that boat. In fact, Javon said, this ain't adding up. Javon said, it's not like Nolan to say, you guys go ahead and leave me on this island and I'm just going to stay back to talk to this girl who I barely know. According to Javon, it don't make no sense. Javon ain't stupid, Art. That's his friend. He know damn well Nolan didn't tell them that he was going to stay back on that ship. And then Katie, I'm going to give a little bit of respect to Katie on this situation. Because as a white girl, Art, for her to come out and say that is not what happened, for her to come out and say that Nolan told me I got to get back to the boat because my friends are leaving, for her to say that, Art, that took a little bit of courage and honesty. That took a little bit of integrity. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to give her too much credit because she is trying to clear her name. What Katie is basically doing, Art, is she's saying, listen, y'all did whatever y'all did to Nolan, but you're not going to add me to the narrative. I'm not serving as nobody's alibi. I'm not helping nobody get out of this situation. You're not going to use me as a decoy But I still appreciate Katie speaking up for Nolan, Art, because she didn't have to do it. Although she's trying to protect herself and stay out of the investigation, I appreciate Katie for letting the world know Nolan told me I got to head back to the boat because my friends are getting ready to leave. Now, according to Katie, Art, she spoke to Nolan sometime between 3 and 4:30. Now, her window appears to be wider than everybody else's window. So Javon's window is much smaller. He said, I saw him at 3:40, went to deal with another situation. By the time I came back, they were gone. Katie said, I spoke with him between 3 and 4:30. And I allege, Art, one of the reasons that Katie is making her window so wide is she trying to leave a little bit of wiggle room for Warren and them to get their story straight, allegedly. I think Katie trying to leave a little bit of wiggle room for Warren and them to get their story straight, Art. Now, according to our sister Christine, and my heart goes out to Sister Christine, Nolan's mother. My heart deeply, deeply goes out to you, Queen. According to Christine, Art, she heard from a coach who ran into Nolan on the island as well. And according to the coach, he spoke to Nolan between 2:30 and 3:30. So Javon didn't see him after 3:40. The coach spoke to him sometime between 2:30 and 3:30. And Katie said her conversation with Nolan was between 3 and 4:30. So you know what that means, Art? We can pretty much conclude that Nolan was likely to have been unalived, Art, sometime within the hour of 3:30 to 4:30. I'm going to insinuate that Nolan's life was taken because I do not believe he accidentally drowned. If he drowned, he was forcibly drowned. And we'll get to that in a minute. If Nolan drowned, he was forcibly drowned. He did not accidentally drown. He was a great swimmer. Miss me with the nonsense. That boy did not drown. If he drowned, it was by force. So again, Art, all three of these people, arguably the last three to see him alive, except for those who took his life, Katie, the coach, and Javon, are arguably the last three people to see Nolan alive, except for those who took his life on that boat, allegedly. That's my position. So they're all basically cutting off around 3:30, Art. Remember, they made the call for the emergency sea tow at 4 o'clock. Javon said he cut out 3:40. The coach, 3:30. They made the call at 4 o'clock. That conversation we heard, the sea tow call, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that took place at 4. It sounded like there was some struggling going on in the background. Nolan could have been getting unalived while they were making the call, Art. Nolan could have been getting unalived while they were making the call. Nolan could have been getting choked out while they was on the phone with Cito. So again, Art, my position is Nolan lost his life somewhere within the hour of 3:30 to 4:30. Now, before we go any further, Art, I need Ben Crump investigation team and Sheriff Ledbetter's investigation team to have a conversation with Javon, because according to Javon's statements on TMZ, the police never spoke to him. And I have serious concerns with the manner in which this investigation has been carried out so far, Art. I have very serious concerns with the manner in which this investigation has been carried out so far. So anyway, Javon said police never spoke with him. Why? We need a conversation with Javon, not because I think he's a suspect. I believe Javon is innocent, but we need to find out what he knows. That's number one. We also need a conversation, Art, with the coach. Who is this coach that Sister Christine said contacted her and told her he had a conversation with Nolan on the island between 2:30 and 3:30? We need to find out what he knows. And according to Katie's sister, she is already cooperating with the authorities. But here's why those three got to be spoken to, Art. Not only so we find out what they know, Art, but did they see each other during their conversation with Nolan? Because Javon, if you was talking to Nolan and left him at 3:40, and if Katie was talking to Nolan sometime between 3 and 4:30, and if the coach was talking to Nolan between 3:30 and 4:30, Art, at least two of you should have ran into each other. Did the coach see Javon? Did Javon see the coach? Did the coach see Katie? Did Katie see the coach? Did Katie see Javon? Did the coach see Katie? Art, if all three of them are saying they saw Nolan for the last time, roughly within the same hour, hour and a half, Art, did y'all run into each other? Let me tell you why I'm asking this question, Art. And I'm not throwing no shade at my brother Javon. I like Javon. I'm not throwing no shade at Miss Katie McCormick. I don't know her. I'm not throwing no shade at the coach, Art. But the reason I need to know why all y'all put y'all time within the same frame, and you may have not possibly seen one another, Art, are you guys keeping yourself out of the window of witnessing this crime by saying you didn't see him after 3:30? I want you to follow what I'm saying here, Art. It's kind of interesting that they all saw him last at 3:30, not after 3:30. Javon 3:40, roughly 3:30. My point is, Art, for all three of them to have the same exact time, if they did not see each other at all during these conversations with Nolan, are they pushing up the window of time during which they saw Nolan so they cannot be included in this investigation as a witness to a crime? In other words, Art, I don't think Javon had nothing to do with it. I know he didn't. But is he saying he saw Nolan a little earlier than he saw him so he can't be pulled into the investigation? I don't think Katie had nothing to do with the crime, but is Katie putting her conversation with Nolan a little earlier than it actually took place to make sure she can't be dragged into the investigation as a witness to a crime? Is it possible that the coach is putting his conversation with Nolan earlier than what it was, Art, to make sure he cannot get dragged into the investigation? I don't think they had anything to do with it, but they could have been a witness to a homicide, Art. They could have been witness to a homicide. If they did not see each other, if none of those three people, the coach, Javon, and Katie, if they did not see each other at all talking to Nolan, if none of them saw each other talking to Nolan, at least two of them are lying about the time they last saw Nolan. Are you following me, Art? All I'm saying is I have my suspicions as to whether or not this convenient 3:30 cutoff window, I have my suspicions that this convenient 3:30 cutoff window may have not actually been the time they saw Nolan. They may have saw Nolan closer to the time he lost his life. Now stay with me, Art. I want to back up for a minute. And I want to say this to Brother Elmore, Nolan's stepfather. And I want to say this to Coach Tracy, who I believe was one of Nolan's coaches. Brother Elmore, the stepfather, and Coach Tracy, the coach, both said on national television, Art, that they don't think race played a role in this at all. Elmore, Tracy, two dark-skinned black men in Mississippi, and both of them said on national television, I don't think race had anything to do with this case. I am disappointed in Brother Elmore. I am disappointed in Coach Tracy. How dare you help these young people avoid the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. federal hate crimes law, Art, by you saying you don't think this had anything to do with race, Brother Elmore and Coach Tracy. You are helping these white folks avoid federal hate crimes charges. And let me tell you why this is important, Art. Let me tell you why this is important. Under the federal hate crimes law, Matthew Shepard, James Byrd, signed by Barack Obama, 2009. Under the Federal Hate Crimes Act, Art, you can go to jail for life. You can go to jail for life under the Federal Hate Crimes law. So if you can go to jail for life under the Federal Hate Crimes Act, Art, why is Nolan's stepfather and coach telling white folks they don't think it had anything to do with race? I still love my brother Elmore. I still love my brother Coach Tracy. But would y'all please watch what comes out of your mouth during this investigation? Because you are undermining justice for Nolan. I hope you're listening, brother Elmore. And I hope you're listening, Coach Tracy. You are undermining justice for Nolan by saying you don't think race had anything to do with it. How in the hell do you know? How do you know if race had anything to do with it? How well do you know these young people? It was 30 of them, Art. It was damn near 30 white youth spread across 3 boats. How many of them did Elmore know? How many of them did Coach Tracy know? So how are you going to go on TV and say, I don't think it had anything to do with race? Why are you helping them avoid accountability for what they may have done? I don't know if they did it, Art. You don't know if they did it. They don't know if they did it. And they definitely don't know if it was motivated by race. What they should have said, Art, is what Javon said. And that's why I like the young brother Javon. That's why I like that young brother Javon. His mother, Sister Tashima, shout out to you. You raised a good kid. When TMZ asked Javon if he thought it had anything to do with race, Art, when TMZ asked Javon if he thought this had anything to do with race, he said, what? I don't want to answer that question. I don't want to answer that question. Perfect answer. Perfect answer. Or, Art, they could have said, I don't know. Nolan's stepfather could have said, I don't know if it had anything to do.
Why did I keep calling Nolan's dad his stepfather? I need to find where they have confirmed that Elmore is Nolan's stepfather. I haven't came across it. If anybody knows where that information is, can you please send it to me, please? Let's keep going. He is making some excellent points, though, especially the time frame where Javon and the coach and Katie said they all last saw or talked to Nolan. He made an excellent point. Like, did you guys see each other in passing? That is a good point. And also, he made another good point when he said that we need to stop assuming that it didn't have anything to do with race, because we don't know. How do you know that? So I definitely agree with some things that Dr. Umar is saying. Let's keep going.
Do with race. Coach Tracy should have said, I don't know if it had anything to do with race. But to say you don't think it had to do with race when he was the only black boy across 3 ships, are you out of your mind? Why would you say that and help them avoid the Federal Hate Crimes Act? Javon gave a better answer than those 2 black men. Javon, a child, gave a better answer than those 2 black men, Art, when he said, I don't want to answer the question. And shout out to Javon, Art. He's intelligent. You know why? Because by saying, I don't want to answer the question, he answered the question. Of course, race has something to do with it. This is the United States of America. Race has something to do with everything involving black people. The country was built on the backs of black people. It's maintained on black people. We are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system, overrepresented in the unemployment line, under the poverty line. Of course, everything in this country has to do with race. And I'm disappointed in us, Art, that we are so afraid to call racism what it is, that we literally got people asking us, when a white person takes the life of a black person, do you think it had anything to do with race? When a police officer takes the life or shoots a black person, do you think it had anything to do? What kind of idiotic gaslighting question is this, Art? All white people are racist. All white people are racist. So we can stop asking if it had anything to do with race. If it's black and it's white, it has something to do with race because all white people are racist. That's just how it is. Now let's get back to this. Before we deal with the infamous CETO call, Art, I got a few questions for Warren. I want to deal with that infamous CETO call, Art, and I want to deal with Sister Tashima and Sister Christine's visit to Warren's home to get Nolan's cell phone. I want to deal with them two in a minute, but before I go there, I got a couple questions for Warren and his white friends. Nolan's best friend, and Warren even called Nolan his brother, Art. He even called him his brother. He said they spent the night together before they went out to White Devil's Horn Island, Art. The night before, July 3rd, they stayed in the same home. How do you stay in the same home with somebody, Art, and leave them on an island? How do you sleep in the same house with somebody July 3rd and then leave them on an island July 4th? But I got a few questions for Warren. No disrespect. I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty, but I got a few questions for you, Warren. Since you could sit down and interview with Officer B.T. Coon, I need you to sit down and interview with Dr. Umar Ifatunde. So you can sit down and interview with Officer B.T. Coon, I want you to sit down and interview with Dr. Umar Ifatunde. My first question to Warren, you said that Nolan is a best friend of yours, that he's like a brother. I have a question. If Nolan is your brother and best friend, why did you leave him on that island, especially when you all were drinking?
Good question.
Because somebody put a report out there, Art, that Nolan had been drinking heavily and was intoxicated. Of course, that allegation was dismissed because the coach who contacted Sister Christine confirmed that he spoke to Nolan between 2:30 and 3:30, and Nolan was not intoxicated. So they lied to protect their friends because white people are always on code, Art. Not a single white person on that island dropped a dime yet. Not one of them. So anyway, Art, they tried to blame it on him being drunk. So he was just a drunk black kid who walked into the water and drowned. That's the narrative they wanted us to swallow. He was just a drunk black kid who walked into the water and drowned. And remember, Art, Sheriff Ledbetter allegedly ruled the case an accidental drowning before he did any investigation. He ruled Nolan's death an accidental drowning before he did any investigation.
He did.
As far as I'm concerned, that meets the definition of public corruption. As far as I'm concerned, that meets the definition of public corruption. But stand with Warren, Art. Warren, if Nolan is your brother and best friend, why did you leave him on an island without his cell phone and his keys? Why did you take his cell phone and keys back to the mainland? You left him there and took his cell phone and keys back. Can you please explain that to me? What person wants to be on an island without their phone? Help me understand that, Warren. I don't know of an 18-year-old who wants to be anywhere without their phone, Art. They don't want to be in school without their phone. They don't want to be at home without their phone. They don't want to be out of town without their phone. They don't want to be at the mall, the movies, the restaurant. They don't want to be nowhere without their phone, let alone on an island with no way to get off.
Right, exactly.
You left your best friend on an island, your so-called brother. You left him on an island with no way to get off, and you took his phone and his keys. Can you explain that to me, Warren?
And that's a good question for Warren. Warren, can you please explain that to us? Because, see, in our culture, we don't leave our best friends or friends on a remote island. I don't care how many people were out there. I would have stayed with my friend. If my friend wanted to stay, guess what? I'm staying with my friend. That's a good question. We don't do that. And that's why you hear a lot of black people saying that. It's odd to us because that is not what we're taught. That is not what we do. And it absolutely is not something any culture should do. Let's keep going.
While you're thinking about it, I got another question for you, Warren. While you're thinking about it, you said at 11 o'clock, you called Miss Christine to see if she heard from her son. Warren said, Art, I called Miss Christine to see if she heard from Nolan. She said she had not heard from Nolan. Can I ask you a question, Warren? If you took his phone, how in the hell was his mother supposed to hear from her son when you have the son's phone? Did you tell Miss Christine that you had her son's phone when you called her? I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't. Think about that, Art. He called the mother and asked her if she heard from her son. But he knows she didn't hear from her son, Art, because he has her son's phone. How can the mother hear from Nolan when you have Nolan's cell phone and you left him on an island? And I bet you didn't tell her you had his phone. Because if she knew you had his phone, Art, she would not have had to use Life 360 to find the phone. If you had his phone and you called her at 11 o'clock to see if Nolan was okay, why didn't you tell Nolan's mom you had his phone? Why did my sister Christine and my sister Tashima have to use Life 360 to find their son's phone? Because you playing games.
Right.
You playing games. You playing in our face like we stupid. That's what this is.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he did it, Art, but he damn sure knows who do. I allege and I believe that all 30 of those white kids on all 3 of them boats know exactly which one of them did it, and the rest of them are covering it up. And guess what, Warren? And the rest of you 30 white kids on those 3 boats, let me explain something to you. Federal hate crimes law, you can go to jail for the rest of your life in case nobody didn't tell you. Federal hate crimes law, you can go to jail for the rest of your life in case nobody told you. Guess what? The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, you can go to jail for up to 30 years. And if Nolan was unalived by more than one person, that constitutes a lynching. That constitutes a lynching. So you can go to jail for up to 30 on the Emmett Till Act. You can go to jail for life on the Matthew Shepard James Byrd Hate Crimes Act. And in the state of Mississippi, Art, if you are an accessory after the fact, not accomplice. Accomplice means you participated in the murder. Accessory means you helped cover it up afterwards. If you are an accessory to the fact, after the fact, Art, you can go to jail for up to 20 years, Mississippi law. So they can go to jail for up to 20 years, Mississippi law. Accessory after the fact, you helped to cover up the crime. You can go to jail for 30 years on the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, because more than one of you probably participated in Nolan's unaliving. And under the Matthew Shepard James Byrd Federal Hate Crimes Act, Art, they can go to jail for life. And this is why I need Nolan's step, pop, and coach to watch what comes out of their mouth and stop trying to help these white kids avoid accountability for what they did to Nolan. Because if the tables will turn, white folks are not going to try to help your child avoid any accountability. So stop the now. Another question I have for
Carmelo
Warren.
Anthony.
You said you and Nolan been friends since 8th grade. Since 8th grade, Art. But Sister Christine says she don't know none of them kids really, Art. She don't know them white kids. So help me understand how you are Nolan's best friend, friends since 8th grade. You called him your brother. Y'all spent the night together July the 3rd, the morning before y'all went to White Devil's Horn Island. And his mother don't even know who you are. And you said out your own mouth that y'all never hung out at Nolan's house. So how are y'all best friends? I had best friends growing up, Art. My mother knew who they were. Who has a best friend that they mom don't know about? Help me understand that. A best friend and the mom don't know him, it sounds suspicious. Why didn't you tell Miss Christine you had her son's cell phone when you called and asked if she heard from him? Art, as far as I'm concerned, there's probable cause he has something to do with this. Art, I'm holding her son's cell phone. I left him on the island. I took his keys and phone. And I'm on the phone with the mom. I got his phone, but I'm calling his mother at 11 o'clock. Have you heard from your son? And I'm holding her son's cell phone and I don't even tell her. Art, this ain't making no sense. This ain't making no sense. And I want to know from Sheriff John Ledbetter, Art, Jackson County Sheriff, you don't have probable cause just off of that alone? Somebody calls somebody's mom asking if she heard from him while they have their phone and left him stranded on the island. And if you care so much about Nolan, Art, if he cares so much about Nolan, the so-called white best friend, Art, why did you wait till 11 o'clock? Y'all left the island for 4:30. Y'all left the island for 4:30. If you care so much about Nolan, why are you not calling his mother until 11 o'clock? It's pitch black outside at 11 o'clock, Art. It's pitch black. It's almost midnight, and you wait till 11 o'clock to call his mom and ask her if she heard from her son, but he's supposed to be your brother and best friend. Listen here, Warren. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. And then I have a question for his dad too, Art. I don't know if you know this, but his dad has started an online fundraising platform for Warren and two of his friends. I think they raised $160,000 so far. $160,000. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has received a warrant. Nobody has been indicted. Nobody has been charged. Art, if you are innocent, why are you raising money online? You ain't been charged with a crime at all. The state of Mississippi is doing everything they can to make sure y'all don't get charged with anything. So why are you raising money online? Why did y'all cancel your social media? Why are y'all lawyering up? They hired Donald Trump's lawyer, Art. One of Donald Trump's lawyers is now the three of their lawyers. If you innocent, what you need Donald Trump's lawyer for? If you're innocent, what you raising $160,000 for?
On now.
It sounds like y'all getting ready to defend yourselves. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like y'all think the truth is going to get out really, really soon, and y'all want to be prepared for it. Again, Art.
I thought about that. When they lawyered up and then their lawyers went to the island along with Warren, I believe it was Warren and Jack's, it may be a different friend of theirs. I believe they was going to allegedly destroy possible evidence from on the island or hide evidence on the island or double check. Why are they raising money for real? What's the point? Are you getting ready for a defense? That is an excellent question and one that must be weighed. So let's keep going.
I'm not saying he did it, but I definitely believe he knows who do. Now, we're going to get to this call. But before we get to this call, Art, I'm going to ask a question to Benjamin Crump. Attorney Benjamin Crump. I met him twice, Art. I met Benjamin Crump the day before I graduated with my doctorate at an Urban League conference in New Orleans. I presented at a workshop at the Urban League conference in New Orleans. This is July of 2012. And I flew back to graduate and get my doctorate in clinical psychology. We had lunch. It's a few of us at the table. We had lunch. Okay. This is around the Trayvon era. And then I met Benjamin Crump again at HBCU Delaware State University about 3 or 4 years ago at the Black Farmers Conference that was put on by one of the Black professors there. She invited me to keynote the luncheon, and she switched me out at the last minute for Attorney Benjamin Crump. I understand it was a Black bourgeoisie event. I'm not a member of the Black bourgeoisie. I got switched out. I understand. No harm, no foul. Ben Crump gave a good speech. But here's my question to Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton. Art. How long are y'all going to wait around before y'all call a spade a spade? How long is Ben Crump and Al Sharpton going to wait around, Art, before they tell the world that they don't think this investigation is being done correctly. How long before Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton demand that the FBI and Department of Justice take over this investigation? Art, it's been over a month and we know nothing.
Nothing.
It's been over a month and we know nothing. Now, let me say this, Art. There's several circumstances through which you can demand the FBI come in and take over an investigation. One of them, Art, if there is a suspicion of public corruption or obstruction of justice. The FBI, the Department of Justice, can come in and take over a case on the suspicion of public corruption or obstruction of justice.
That's a good point.
So you're going to say, Dr. Umar, what evidence do you have of that? First of all, they declared this an accidental drowning before they did any investigation. That's a cover-up. Not only that, Art, they never treated the boat like a crime scene. They never took a look at the other two boats. We have no information at all on the other two boats.
Right.
Those 30 white kids should have had their cell phones confiscated, investigated.
Right.
All their social media should have been investigated. Their homes should have been investigated. They should have all been interrogated. They should have been investigated to see if they or their parents had any connection to any of the white hate groups in the state of Mississippi. None of that was done. They gave the boat back to the owner, Art. They gave the boat back. The boat may have been a crime scene and they gave it back.
He has some great points. Why isn't Ben Crump? I mean, he could be. He could be doing this. So I'm not gonna say that he's not. But asking the Department of Justice and the FBI to get involved, because there's several things that came out that does point to some type of cover up. And the biggest thing is the silence. The silence is very loud. Like they are not telling us anything. And we know that they already know how he died. And it wasn't by drowning, because if it was by drowning, they would have said that a long time ago when the autopsy was complete. Let's keep going. He has some very valid and good questions.
According to the Cajun Navy, another question for Ben Crump, Art. According to the Cajun Navy, they offered Ben Crump to put dogs on the boat and let the dogs sniff it out to see if anybody had recently been deceased on that boat or if there had been any blood on that boat. And according to the representative from the Cajun Navy, Ben Crump told him don't do it. So I need Ben Crump, respectfully.
Well, I'm going to say that Ben Crump said that he didn't say that. In his defense, I'm going to say that Ben Crump said that the Cajun Navy never offered that. And we know how the Cajun Navy is. They're biased against Ben Crump. They are the ones who said that they found Nolan in the water fully clothed. And then when Ben Crump repeated what they said, they came out publicly and called him a liar, as if they didn't say it. So, Dr. Umar, we're not going to really believe what the Cajun Navy is talking about. Not like that. We're going to take it with a grain of salt, okay? Let's keep going.
I'm not accusing him of nothing, Art, but I need Ben Crump to explain to me why you didn't let them use the dogs to sniff out that boat. Why did you not let them sniff out that boat with them dogs? Did you have your own dogs to sniff out the boat? Because if you didn't, why didn't you let them sniff the boat out with the dogs? The dogs can tell, Art, if somebody had recently lost their life or if blood had been spilled. He said Ben Crump told him no.
I don't believe that.
I need Ben Crump to explain that.
I think he already did.
I need Sheriff John Ledbetter to explain why the boat wasn't treated as a crime scene, potential crime scene. I need him to explain why all them white kids wasn't arrested and questioned, because if it was black kids and a white kid went missing, Art, they would have all been arrested and questioned. You know that. They would have all been arrested and questioned. And then let's talk about the autopsy, Art. Let's talk about the autopsy. So the Mississippi State Medical Examiner, they do their autopsy July 7th, right? July 7th. And then Nolan's mother requested an independent autopsy, as she should have. They send Nolan's body to Washington, D.C. When the black medical examiner gets Nolan's corpse, Art, the throat tissue and the lung tissue is gone. How is he supposed to determine if Nolan died from being choked out or if Nolan died from drowning if he don't have the throat tissue or the lung tissue, Art? How is he supposed to do his job and y'all didn't send the throat tissue or the lung tissue? And nobody has explained yet whether or not the medical examiner in DC is ever going to get the throat tissue or the lung tissue. And I personally believe, Art, I personally believe
what he just
Nolan
brought up is something that I brought up on my last live. So they have completed their autopsy. I'm talking about the state of Mississippi. Why not release the rest of the throat, the body parts that were missing, to the independent pathologist to complete his autopsy? That is a very good question. It's one that I raised a couple of days ago. So let's keep going.
Was deceased before he hit the water. I believe Nolan was deceased before he hit the water. And the reason they held on to the throat tissue and the reason they held on to the lung tissue is they didn't want nobody to know that Nolan was murdered before he hit that water. Just like Emmett Till was murdered before he hit that water. Just like Dr. King's brother, A.D. King, was murdered before he hit that water. Remember, Art, when Dr. King's brother was murdered, Reverend A.D. King, they found him in a swimming pool. They ruled it a drowning. And then one of the paramedics said what, Art? One of the paramedics who took Dr. King's brother out the pool, Art, said he didn't have no water in his lungs. The paramedic said he didn't have no water in his lungs, Art. And plus, A.D. King, just like Nolan, A.D. King, just like Nolan, was a great swimmer, Art. Was a great swimmer. They kept them lungs, I believe. They kept the lungs, Art, because they knew that those lungs would have provided evidence of the fact that Nolan may have been deceased.
Let me correct Dr. Umar on this, because if you're going to teach my audience, you got to teach them the facts. You can't, they did not keep the lungs, okay? Guys, they kept the throat parts. The lungs were dissected already. Ben Crump came out and he did acknowledge that they received the lungs, but there's no way for them to confirm if water was in the lungs or not because the lungs were already dissected by the first medical examiner. So they did get the lungs and they were able to examine the lungs, but they couldn't come to a conclusion. The throat parts were missing, stomach as well. So I just wanted to correct that. You know how we are. Truth gang, gotta be truthful. All right.
Ceased before he hit that water. They kept the throat because it may have shown some trauma that Nolan may have gotten choked out. And then you got the red substance around the back of the head that the DC medical examiner discussed. We don't know if Nolan got hit in the back of the head. We don't know if the blood simply drained to the back of the head. But here's the thing, Art. They say Nolan was found face down in the water. Nolan was found face down in the water, Art. Not only that, Nolan was transported face down to Washington, D.C. So guess what, Art? I have my doubts as to whether or not the red, which is probably blood in the back of the head, the subcutaneous red area, Art, I don't think that has anything to do with the blood draining to the back. You want to know why? Because he was found floating on his face.
This is true.
And he was sent to Washington, D.C. on his face. So the blood couldn't have went backwards, Art. I believe Nolan got hit in the back of the head, and it was that hit that cost him his life. It was that hit that cost him his life. It was that hit that cost him his life. Now, with that being said, Art, I want to go to Sister Tashima and Sister Christine going over to Warren's home, allegedly, to get Nolan's phone. So Sister Christine reported Nolan missing around 12:22 p.m. on the 4th. Sometime after that, her and Sister Tashima, Javon's mom, used Life 360 art and they tracked the phone to Warren's home. I believe it was Warren's home. Don't hold me to that. I believe it was, no, I think it was one over the friend's home, lady friend's home. I think Warren said they were swimming at a lady friend's home. Whoever house it was one of them kids who was out there on White Devil Horns Island. So they tracked the phone to this house, Art. And Sister Tashima said when they opened up the door, the house was dark. You know why the house was dark, Art? They turned the lights off so they wouldn't recognize nobody's face. When they saw Nolan's mom is outside, this is what I believe happened. This is what I'm gonna let. Nolan's mother and Javon's mother are outside. How did they know where we are? Turn the lights off because they are not going to leave until we open this door. They turned the lights off, Art, so they could hide. They didn't know that Nolan had Life 360 on that phone. They didn't know that Nolan had Life 360. Now, Sister Tashima said, Art, it took them 15 minutes to bring the phone.
Right.
Art, she said it took them 15 minutes. You know why? Because they was deleting his Snapchat accounts. That's why, Art. It took them 15 minutes to bring the phone because they were deleting Nolan's Snapchat account. And they also needed to make sure they had their story straight in case Sister Christine and Sister Tashima had any more questions, Art. That's what was going on. Mm-hmm. But let me say this to Sister Christine and Sister Tashima. My beautiful African sisters, don't you ever again in your life go to a home at that time of night by yourself without no men. Brother Elmore should have been with y'all. You are in Mississippi. You don't know who would have been in that house. You don't know what type of racist rednecks could have came out there and attacked you guys, and y'all could have ended up missing just like Nolan. And once again, they would have said they never saw y'all. And once again, they would have said that they never saw y'all. So please don't do that again. I know you was looking for your son. I know you was helping your girlfriend look for her son. But don't y'all ever pull up at no white people's house you don't know after midnight. Don't you do that no more, ladies. Bring a couple alpha males with you. Bring Brother Elmore with you next time. But this is what I wish they would have done, Art. Let me tell you what I wish they would have done. When Sister Tashima and Sister Christine got to that house, Art, I wish they would not have told them they knew the phone was in there. Stay with me, Art. I wish they would have not told them they knew the phone. They should have played it off, Art. They should have said, we want to know if anybody has seen Nolan. We haven't heard from him since he went with y'all to White Devil's Horn Island. And they would have said, we ain't heard from him, Art. And then I would have said, do you know if Nolan had his phone with him? I've been calling my son all day. He's not picking up. Do you know if he had his phone? And if they would have said no, Art, if they would have said, we don't know if he had his phone or not, you know what I would have done? I would have called the police and I would have told the police, Art, my son is missing. He went to White Devil's Horn Island with these white kids in his house. They have his phone. They don't know I know they have his phone. And they just lied to my face and told me that they don't know where the phone is and the phone is right in there with them. I believe that they are suspects in my son's disappearance and I want them all arrested. That's what I wish they would have done, Art. I wish they didn't tell them they knew the phone was in there. I wish they would have act like they didn't know if the phone was in there and just asked them if they saw the phone. And once those white kids lied, I would have called the police because they never thought anybody was coming for Nolan's phone and keys. They never thought anyone was coming for Nolan's phone and keys because they didn't know Sister Christine had Life 360 on that phone, Art. They did not know that. And I think it is so disrespectful, Art, so racist, and so bigoted that white people are filing false reports on Sister Christine's nursing license, Art. She now got to go before the nursing board in Mississippi, Art. Nolan's mother, still grieving the death of her son, she got to go and defend her credentials because white folks are mad that she's demanding justice for her son. This sounds just like Mamie Till Mobley, Emmett Till's mother. They did the same thing to Emmett Till, Art. After they assassinated Emmett Till, they harassed his mother. They sent her all type of threatening phone calls, letters, notices. Here we are, Art. 61 years later, they doing the same thing to Nolan Wells' mom. For black people who think white people have changed, Art, it's time to wake up and smell the coffee. They are their ancestors, Art. They are their ancestors. They might be worse. They are their ancestors. And since they are their ancestors, we need to be our ancestors. Now, let's talk about the infamous CETO call, Art. So again, Javon sees Nolan at 3:40. The coach sees Nolan between 2:30 and 3:30. Katie sees Nolan between 3 and 4:30. I already told you I believe Nolan was unalived between 3:30 and 4:30. Now, our sister, what was her name? Jacqueline Brentley or something. Jacqueline Brentley. Forgive me, sister, for mispronouncing your name.
Janetta.
But our sister, who is an audio engineer, Art, she went through the laborious process of cleaning up the background conversation during the infamous CETO call. She cleaned up the background audio during the infamous CETO call, Art. And during the infamous CETO call, Art, according to her cleanup, it sounds like they were trying to clean up an unaliving of Nolan Wells. You hear people saying things like, is he still alive? Did you unalive him? Is he okay? People are shocked, asking questions. Is he still breathing? If that tape gets corroborated, all the white young folks on those 3 boats need to go to jail, Art.
All of them.
They need to be charged, all of them.
All of them.
Whether you committed the crime, whether you was an accomplice to the crime, whether you was an accessory to the crime. Whether you committed the crime, first-degree murder, whether you was an accomplice to the crime, you helped them carry it out, whether you was an accessory to the crime, you helped them plan it, or you helped them cover it up, Art, because I'm having problems. I'm having problems with this investigation. It is too lax. It is too soft.
Right.
And my question to Ben Crump and Al Sharpton, how long before y'all going to demand that the federal Department of Justice take over the investigation, Art?
I agree.
As I was saying earlier,
But
you can
here's the thing with the federal and the FBI and the DOJ. We've seen what they did with the Kendra Johnson case. So I cannot necessarily say that I have full confidence in those agencies either. Let's keep it real. Just because someone calls the FBI or the Department of Justice doesn't mean the outcome is going to be different. It is what it is. Let's be realistic. Let's keep going.
Man, the feds that take over the investigation, Art, if there is concern about public corruption and obstruction of justice, one of the boys' mom or stepmom, and I think it's Warren, allegedly, one of the boys' mothers or stepmothers is a chancery court judge. Another one of the children's parents is allegedly tied to the FBI. So, Art, if their parents are tied up in the Mississippi state power structure, if these children's parents are tied up in the Mississippi state power structure, you know damn well Mississippi is not trying to find any of those kids guilty of anything. You know that. Mississippi does not have a history of helping black people find justice against white people. That is not the history of Mississippi. It ain't the history of Arkansas. It ain't the
Listen, let me address this person that keeps talking about that Miss Christina wasn't with Tashima when they went to get the phone. Okay, yes, they were together. Yes, it was Tashima that went up to the house. Okay, but they went together. All right. Now do me a favor and also know that nobody has made a sworn statement. Not anybody involved in this case has made not one sworn statement. Period. None of them are sworn. Okay. Let's stay on topic here and let's move on. Thank you.
History of Texas. It ain't the history of Louisiana. It ain't the history of South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, or none of those states. So why is it Ben Crump and Al Sharpton calling for a federal investigation? That's number one. Number two, Art, guess what? Horns Island is federal land.
True.
Horns Island is federal land, Art. If Horns Island is federal land, Art, why are we not demanding that the feds do the investigation and not Sheriff Ledbetter? The island is federal land, Art. It's federal land. Why aren't the feds carrying out the investigation? That's the second reason they should be involved. The third reason they should be involved, Art, is there's a strong likelihood that this was a federal hate crime and a lynching. Very strong likelihood that this was Nolan Wells' death is very likely to have been a federal hate crime, and it is very likely to have been a federal lynching, meaning more than one person participated in the racially motivated crime. So I just gave you 3 reasons why the feds should be investigating this case and not the sheriff's office. Why is Ben Crump and Al Sharpton dragging their feet? Benjamin Crump, you need to have a street march. You need to bring all of the black militia groups to Mississippi, and we need to march on Mississippi. Your approach to this investigation is too humble, it is too docile, it is too meek, it is too soft. You are dealing with Mississippi, and you have not activated any street protests. Sister Christine and Brother Nolan are not going to get justice, Art. Sister Christine and Brother Nolan Wells are not going to get justice, Art, if Benjamin Crump doesn't activate a street activism campaign. It is time for Ben Crump and Al Sharpton to activate a street activism campaign. And let me say this, Art. Al Sharpton is about to have another march on Washington. For what? For what? He's going to commemorate the Dr. King 1963 March on Washington. He's been doing it almost every year. But Art, it's an empty symbol. Al Sharpton, listen to me, sir. You don't need to march on.
He has an interesting point. I didn't really think about that. Even when others were going down there to march, it was kind of a separation, if that makes sense. When activists were going to Mississippi to march for justice for Nolan Wells, it was a separate, it was like they distanced themselves from the activists. So that's a good point. Let's be real. That's a good point. Why are we not marching for Nolan for answers? Just saying.
DC, we don't need another empty, meaningless Democratic Party sponsored march in Washington, D.C. We need you to switch that march, Art. Al Sharpton, if he cares about justice for Black Mississippi, if Al Sharpton cares about justice for Black Mississippi, Art, he will switch the march from D.C. to Mississippi. Al Sharpton needs to switch the march from Washington, D.C. to Mississippi. And it should be 4 days, Art. It should be 4 days, Art. We should march in Senatobia, Mississippi one day for baby Cohen, who was shot and murdered by the police in the Walmart parking lot. We got to march for baby Cohen, who was shot by the police in Senatobia. We have to march in Cleveland, Mississippi for our brother Trey Reed, who was unalived September 15th, 2025, hanging from a tree on Delta State University campus in Cleveland, Mississippi, September 15th, 2025. So we need to march in Cleveland, Mississippi. We need to march in Senatobia, Mississippi. We need to march in Jackson, Mississippi, because what just happened in Jackson on Monday, Art? A black woman, 28, 29 years old, Tasia Fortune, was found hanging from a tree. Monday, Art, 4 days ago, a black woman was found hanging from a tree in Jackson, Mississippi. And check this out, Art. They said her corpse, her body, had been hanging from the tree for 3 to 4 days, Art. 3 to 4 days, her body was hanging. It gets worse, Art. It gets worse. They said they had to use a ladder. They had to use a ladder to go up on the tree and get our sister Tasia down. And guess what the Mississippi State Medical Examiner ruled it, Art? Guess what she ruled it?
Nothing yet.
The same thing she ruled Trey Reed's death as: suicide.
Okay, so that is not true. They have not ruled Tasia Fortune's death a suicide. They have not came out and said anything about it yet. So we got to make sure that we're putting the right stuff out there. And he's saying a lot of good things, a lot of important things, but some things is a hit and miss with Dr. Umar. But let's keep going because he does have some awesome points.
Let me ask you a question, Art. How many black people you know hang themselves from trees? I don't know no black person who have ever taken their life by hanging themselves from a tree. In fact, it's almost impossible to hang yourself from a tree. In fact, black people have been hung from trees by white people for over 200 years. So you mean to tell me the very method that has been used to take our lives at the hands of white people, we are now taking the method ourselves, Art. We are now taking the method ourselves, Art, and we're going to hang ourselves with a noose the same way white people used to hang our ancestors? Who does that make sense to? That don't make no damn sense. So now all of a sudden, when black people want to take their life, we're going to go outside, get a noose, and hang ourselves suspended from a tree. That's nonsense. And the Mississippi State Medical Examiner, Art, every time a black person is found hanging in Mississippi, she wants to rule it a suicide. You know why, Art? If you rule it a suicide, you don't have to investigate. If you rule it a suicide, you can close the case and you don't have to invest.
Taco. All right, let me address you real quick, Taco. Where's your comment? Just real quick. Sometimes it's an accident. Sometimes the comments are moving too fast. And if I click on somebody or one of my moderators click on somebody, we sometimes click on the wrong person because it's by the time we hit the button, it's moved to the next person. So it could have very well been an accident, okay, brother or sister? But I am going to ask everybody, and I mean everybody, to stay respectful in the comments, please. If you're going to curse, spell your curse words wrong. Please keep your racial slurs out of the comments. Thank you. Let's keep going.
The gate. So Ben Crump and Al Sharpton need to turn up the heat under Sheriff Ledbetter's office. They need to turn up the heat under District Attorney Moraf's office because they are dragging their feet. They are not taking this investigation seriously. It is too quiet. We don't know anything. Sister Christine don't know anything after 30 days, and Ben Crump and Al Sharpton need to go to the streets. Since you like to march every year in Washington, D.C., Al Sharpton, why don't you bring your behind to Mississippi and march? We need to march in Senatobia. We need to march in Cleveland, Mississippi. We need to march in Jackson for Sister Tasia Fortune. And we need to march in Ocean Springs for Brother Nolan Wells. And check this out, Art. The Attorney General said they're going to keep the toxicology and the autopsy report under seal. They're going to keep the toxicology and the autopsy under seal, Art, until the grand jury gets to see it. A grand jury is going to decide whether or not anybody is going to get charged with a crime, Art. And I have a big problem with that, Art. That's what happened with Carmelo Anthony. That's what happened with Carmelo Anthony. A grand jury proceeding is a relatively secret process, Art. You don't even know who's on the grand jury, Art. You don't even know who's a group of secret white people. A group of secret white people are going to decide if any of those 30 white kids on those 3 boats should be charged with a crime in the death of Nolan Wells. And we won't even know who they are, and we won't even know how they came to their decision, Art. We won't even know who the grand jury is, and we won't even know how the grand jury came to their decision. What is Ben Crump ready to do? What is Al Sharpton ready to do if the grand jury returns no indictments on anybody at all for the death of Nolan Wells? Will Benjamin Crump be ready to march then, Art? Will Al Sharpton be ready to march in Mississippi then? If the grand jury says this was an accidental drowning, case is closed, no indictments, what is Ben Crump and Al Sharpton going to do? Because right now, and I respect them both.
I'm going to say this. If they come back with some bull crap, accidental, whatever, I say Ferguson 2.0. That's what I say. Ferguson 2.0, period.
Both are. But right now, the way this case is being handled, they are too docile, they are too meek, they are too humble, and they are too soft. We need some street action. We need some street protests. We need some street marches. We need to raise up the temperature in Mississippi, Art. That's what we need to do. This is the state that unalived Medgar Evers. This is the state that lynched Emmett Till.
Yep.
This is the state that took the life of Baby Cohen. This is the state that lynched Tasia Fortune. This is the state that lynched Trey Reed. This is Mississippi, the state that tried to lynch Fannie Lou Hamer. The state that tried to lynch Ida B. Wells. When are we going to wake up and smell the coffee?
Wow.
Now let's get to the infamous call, Art, and I'm going to wrap this up. Let me get to the infamous call, and I'm going to wrap this up. They called the Cito company at 4 o'clock.
Let's not forget about Georgia.
We already talked about the background noise that the audio engineer, our beautiful black sister, Jeanette Brentley, cleaned up. Sounds very suspicious, Art. It sounds like they may have been in the act of unaliving Nolan Wells when they made the call. It sounds like they may have been in the act of unaliving Nolan Wells when they made the call, Art. Allegedly. And guess what, Art? That would make perfect sense. You want to know why? Because the call was bogus. Nothing was wrong with that shit. This is my allegations. This is my belief and my allegations, and I'm standing on it. Nothing was wrong with the boat, Art, and I'm going to explain to you how we know this. Nothing was wrong with that boat. They made that call because they needed an alibi, Art. They needed an alibi. So if Nolan Wells, when Nolan's body was found, Art, if they were able to determine the time of death, when Nolan's body was found, and if they were able to determine the time of death, they say, wait a minute, Nolan was unalived at 4 o'clock. Guess what, Art? They could say our boat was sinking at 4 o'clock and we was on the phone with Cito. The phone call was an alibi, Art. The phone call was a decoy. The phone call was a bait and switch. There was nothing wrong with that boat, Art.
I agree.
So listen, we know that Mississippi is going to find all the audio engineers they can find, Art. We know that Mississippi is going to find all the audio engineers that they can find, Art, to try to say that the background noise cannot be corroborated or verified.
Right. Didn't we just hear one? Didn't we just hear one say that? Didn't we just hear one say that we didn't hear what we heard, like we deaf, dumb, and blind and can't hear? Yeah, they're doing it right now. They're doing it right now. And it's going to be multiple of them that's going to come out and try to discredit that audio. But we got to stick to what we heard. We got to stick to what we know. We got to keep our foot on their necks, and we got to keep talking about it. We have to not allow them to sweep this under the rug. All right, let's finish this up so we can get to the next clip. We all got jobs on this channel, and we got to go to work in the morning, so I'm not going to hold you guys too long. All right.
You know they're going to say that. They're going to say we can't use the background noise. It's too much going on. We don't care what Sister Jeanette Brantley had to say. We don't care what y'all conspiracy theorists got to say. We had our own FBI audio engineers listen to it, and they can't make out the conversation.
They're doing it right now.
I believe it says what Sister Jeanette Brantley says it says. I believe it, Art. It makes perfect sense. They called at the time that they were unaliving him to have an alibi and an excuse. But guess what, Art? Even if they throw out the background noise, I believe we still have probable cause to arrest all 30 of those white kids. And I'm going to tell you why, Art. Let's listen to the conversation, Art. Let's listen to the conversation. He calls the operator on CETO. The operator says, how can I help you? And I'm paraphrasing. He says, our boat is sinking and we need a tow. She says, how much water are you in? He says, we're in 17 feet of water. No. We in 31 feet of water. Art, there's a big difference between 17 and 31. There's a big difference between 17 and 31. Why don't you know if you are in roughly 17 feet of water? And why don't you know if you are in roughly 31 feet of water? You are on the boat all the time. This is what they do, Art. They boat all the time. They go to Horn Island all the time. Why don't you know if you're in 17 foot of water or 31 foot of water? 31 foot of water. But Art, it gets better than this, Art. It gets better. The CETO operator, Art, says, do you want me to call the Coast Guard? Do you want me to call the Coast Guard? Guess what he said? We don't need the Coast Guard. Art, if your boat is sinking, do you care who comes to rescue you?
No.
If your boat is sinking, if I'm sinking in 31 feet of water, you could call the Coast Guard, you could call the aliens, you could call the Snow Bunny boat, you could call whoever you want to call if my boat is sinking. He told the operator, we don't need the Coast Guard. Who does that, Art?
Right.
Who says we don't need the Coast Guard?
Somebody who already called his granddaddy prior to calling the CETO, and granddaddy called the captain and told him not to go. So that's why. That's who don't need it. Because just like you said, and just like the GPS shows that they were docked on Horn Island. They were anchored there. The boat hadn't moved yet. So the call was a decoy. Just like he said, I believe that allegedly now.
If we sink it. So she says, okay. She says, how many adults are on the boat? Pay attention to this, Art. We caught him in another lie. Listen to this. She says, how many adults are on the boat? He said, quote, there are no adults on the boat. He lied, Art. Second lie. First lie, he said, Nolan said, I'm staying behind to hang out with Katie. Y'all can leave me. Katie said Nolan told her, I'm headed back to the boat because my friend's about to leave. That was lie number one. That was lie number one. You lied and said Nolan said he was going to stay behind with Katie. That was a lie. Lie number two. The CETO operator asked you, how many adults are on the boat? He said there are no adults on the boat, Art. Why did he lie? Why did he lie? She said, how many people on the boat? He said, everybody on the boat is under 21. Art, she said, that was not my question. Art, she begged him to tell her how many people are on the boat. She said, that's not my question. How many people are on the boat? She said, is anybody breathing on the boat?
Yep.
He said, a lot of people breathing on the boat. She said, is there anybody living on the boat? He said, yes, people are alive on the boat. Art, I would like to investigate her. She didn't do no crime. I want to know what made that operator say, is anybody breathing on the boat? What made her say, is anybody alive on the boat, Art? What did she hear in the background?
Good question.
What did that operator hear in the background to make her ask him, is anybody breathing on the boat?
She heard what we heard. Nolan! Is he dead? Check his chest. Oh my God! Damn it, Bart! That's what she heard. Let's keep going. Allegedly.
That don't sound like a regular question. And then she said, is anybody living on the boat? It's almost like she could feel something was going on. I would love to know if those were standard questions, Art. I would love to know if those were standard questions or if she had a hunch that something fishy was going on. Now check this out, Art. She asked him a third or fourth time. He would not answer the question, Art. He would not.
The question was so simple, guys. How many people are on the boat? First answer, there are no children on the boat. She asked, how many adult or children on the boat? There are no children on the boat. She kept asking him, how many people are on the boat? There are 0 people on the boat that are under the age of 21. I mean, over the age of 21. He just would not give a simple answer at all whatsoever. And all of that shit, every piece of that phone call, of that call, was suspect. But they want us to believe that we didn't hear what we heard. They want us to believe that we're deaf, that we're making up stuff, we're hallucinating. They want us to believe all this stuff. What is it, the Mandela effect? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's diabolical. Let's keep going.
Answer the question. How many people are on the boat? Guess what he said, Art? Like 7.
Thank you, Melina.
Like 7. Art, the boat only holds 8. They went out there that morning with 8. 7 Caucasians and Nolan. 7 Caucasians and Nolan. Art, they left with 7, right? When she said how many people on the boat, Art, why did he say like 7? Right. Why didn't he say 7?
Come on, man.
It's only 7 people.
Preach.
Why couldn't he say 7?
I caught that. He said like 7. Like, what? You don't know the number? First of all, you stall trying to get the answer, muting your phone, coming back and say, hello? Like, you still there? Oh, like 7. You don't do that. They just think that we're so, like, they think we're our uneducated ancestors. That's what they think, but we're not them.
Why did he say like 7? You know why he said like 7, Art?
Thank you.
Because he didn't know if Nolan was still alive or not.
Thank you.
He didn't know if Nolan was still alive or not. So let me say like 7 in case he survives. Because Art, if you call me up and say, Dr. Umar, how many people at the basketball game? I can't count them all, Art. I'm gonna say like 100. It's like 100. Because I don't know. It could be a little less than 100. It could be a little more than 100. I'm gonna say it's like 100. But Art, if it's only 7 people on the boat, I don't need to say like 7. I could just say 7. He didn't want to give her a direct answer. Why didn't he want to give her a direct answer, Art? Because he knows it should have been 8 people on that boat. He knows it should have been 8 people on that boat. So he said like 7 because he didn't want to say 7 so nobody can ask him where the hell was Nolan.
Facts.
Nolan's life was taken between 3:30 and 4:30, and they know exactly how and who. They know exactly how and who, Art. And they took the phone and the keys to get rid of any evidence. They took the phone and the keys to get rid of any evidence. And if Sister Christine and Sister Tashima didn't go to that girl's house to get that phone, they would have discarded it, Art. They were going to discard the keys in the phone and act like they never even had them either. Now, I'm going to give you this one piece, Art, and I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to give you this one piece, Art, and I'm going to leave it alone. As I said, I'm very disappointed in the fact that Sheriff Ledbetter and District Attorney Morath are not investigating all 30 of those children. I'm disappointed that all 3 boats were not treated like a crime scene. Now, my primary theory, they unalived him on the boat, threw him over to make it look like a drowning. They unalived him on the boat or on land before they took off, threw him in the water to make it look like a drowning. But I'm gonna say this to you, Art. I have another theory as well. I got 2 theories. That's my first theory. Let me give you my second theory and we done on this. There's a strong chance, Art, that after they unalived Nolan, they held on to the body overnight and dumped it the next day, Art. Or they took the body to one of the other islands around Horn Island and dumped the body. And let me tell you why I believe this, Art. Let's go back to Emmett Till. Let's go to Emmett Till, Art. Emmett Till was unalived on August 28th. They tied They bob-wired Emmett Till to a 75-pound cotton gin, 1955. August 28th, 1955, Emmett Till was unalived, and they bob-wired him to a 75-pound cotton gin and threw him in the Tallahatchie River. The Tallahatchie River, Art, is a freshwater river. Horn Island is on the Gulf of Mexico. It's salt water. Salt water is rougher and more active and more buoyant than freshwater, Art. Follow me on this. Emmett Till got thrown in the Tallahatchie, bob-wired to a 75-pound cotton gin, Art, and his body made it up to the surface on August the 31st. Even though he was tied to a 75-pound cotton gin in a river, his body floated up to the surface in 3 days, Art. Emmett Till was 14. Nolan Wells is 18. If Nolan Wells was unalived and dumped immediately on July 4th, Art, we should have saw his body on July 5th. If Emmett Till's body can make it to the top in 3 days, tied to a cotton gin, Art, why did Nolan Wells' body only surface the morning of July 6th? I think there is a strong possibility they held onto his body, Art, because they were afraid that if they dumped it immediately, it would surface too soon. If they dumped Nolan's body too soon, it would have surfaced before they were ready. That body could have floated back, Art, before they made it back home. They all go to jail. They could have held onto his body, Art, and dumped it on July 5th or dumped it the morning of July 6th. Because according to science, Art, Nolan's body should not have surfaced for 3 days. Or, according to what happened to Emmett Till, it should have surfaced within a day. The fact that it took Nolan Wells' body 41 hours before we saw it, I think that body might have gotten dumped, Art. I think they might have held onto Nolan Wells' body and dumped it a day or two later. And that's why the other 2 boats are important to the investigation, Art. How do we know Nolan wasn't unalived on one boat and held on the second boat? How do we know that? How do we know a second boat didn't take Nolan Wells' corpse to one of them other islands and then the body floated back, Art? Why are we not investigating all 3 boats and all 30 white children? Art, I'm gonna tell you like this. For that boy to not tell that sea tow operator how many people was on that boat, and she asked him 3 times, and the fact he lied and said there was no adults, and then he still didn't answer her question and said everybody under 21, and she had to repeatedly say that was not my question.
Truth gang, where's the lie? Where is the lie? The whole call was suspicious. The whole call, the muting, the not knowing the answers to the questions, not knowing how much water was in the boat, first saying, oh, we're in 17 feet, 31 feet of water, not knowing how many people were on the boat, all of it suspect. We got to keep talking about Nolan. They want to silence us. They want to shut us up. We can't allow them to shut us up. Let's keep going. And then I got one more clip we're going to listen to.
Why are you unwilling to tell her it's only 7 people and not 8 people? Last thing I'm going to say, Art, shout out to Tyler Perry, Terrell Owens, Colin Kaepernick for helping to pay for the funerals, autopsy, as well as reward money for information leading to an arrest. But guess what, Art? That reward money needs to be more than $175,000. Mississippi is the poorest state in America. 1 in 4 people live in poverty. We need that reward money, Art, to go up to $1 million. I need LeBron James, Rihanna, Tiger Woods, Venus, Serena, Kanye. Get that reward money up to $1 million, Art. We need the reward money up to $1 million so those white folks will start talking. $175,000, Art, is not enough money. We need $1 million. Guess how they found the 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia, Mississippi in 1964, Art? Remember the Ku Klux Klan murdered those 3 workers? Cheney, Goodman, and Swerner, Mississippi burning? Mississippi burning, guess how they found out? An undercover FBI agent tipped off the FBI to where those 3 bodies were buried. Do the FBI have any undercover officers operating in this case? Does the state of Mississippi Bureau of Investigation have any undercover officers operating in this case? We need some undercover agents to weave into the lives of these young people and find out exactly what happened to Nolan Wells. And that's why Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton need to demand a federal takeover of this investigation immediately.
I agree. But I agree.
Now, if this is a crime, there has to be a potential motive.
Hold on a second. That I don't have 100% confidence in the feds. I don't. Just by the way that they treated Kendrick Johnson's case, yeah, they can cover up things as well. Well, everybody, welcome my brother Rogish. Salute. You got anything else to say before we watch this next clip? I want us to watch this retired Army interrogator break down Warren's interview.
Yeah, let's watch that.
Yeah, because he caught Warren in several lies. So I want to get into that before we leave for tonight.
Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl.
What?
And
No, hold on. Stop. That directly contradicts what this guy just said like 2 minutes ago. Oh my God. Listen, this is part 2 of my analysis of the Brandon Tatum interview with Warren Hudson, who claims to be Nolan Wells' best friend. If you're here from part 1, I apologize. It took me so long to get part 2 up. Had some stuff going on in the private life. For those who are new or don't know, I am a former Army interrogator, human intelligence collector. I was trained by the United States government to analyze your language, body language, posture to identify deception. I did it in the real world through interrogations, through source operations, and through strategic briefings. I've got tons of certifications. I'm an expert at this. So what I'm doing is I'm watching these interviews with the friends of Nolan Wells and that they did with Officer Tatum, Brandon Tatum, and I am identifying deception. So I'm going to give you the same caveat in this video that I gave in the last video. And if you haven't seen part 1, I suggest watching that so this part makes more sense. Identifying deception simply means that the whole truth's not there. Now, that lying by omission is still a lie. Lying by changing the truth is still a lie. But the thing is, when I say I'm identifying deception, I don't know why you're lying or necessarily what you're lying about. That's what an interrogation is for, which is my former occupation. If during the course of me talking to you, I identified deception, I would take a note of that and then exploit that during an interrogation to find out what you're lying about, because you're lying about something, and I would find out why you're lying. So when I say in these interviews that I've identified deception, I'm not saying that anybody is guilty of anything. Also, sometimes when you exploit deception, it could be something super innocent, like a misunderstanding or something like that. So I don't know. I don't have the evidence to say that Warren here is guilty of anything. I don't have the evidence to say that any of these boys are hiding something and know something that they haven't said. However, I will be very clear on what my theories and opinions are as we go along. And I will tell you some of the conclusions that I've personally came to through following the evidence, following the case, and listening to these interviews. But the part of this interview that I just started this clip off with, I think is one of the most important things that I've accidentally discovered while listening to these interviews. And I need to show you that first. That clip I just showed is from part 3 of Officer Tatum, Brandon Tatum's sit down with Warren Hudson. He's the one who claimed to be Nolan Wells' best friend. If you watched my first part of me analyzing this interview, then you know I don't believe that he is being honest about the true nature of his friendship with Nolan Wells. He's saying he's his best friend, he's like a brother, but all of his language and how he tells the story and how he talks about Nolan, how he talks about everything, leads me to believe that it is an associative relationship. They just are in the same friend group or same circle of friends. They're on an association matrix. They can be correlated, but I don't think they're best friends like brother friends. I think that's overstating the relationship, and I find that to be a red flag. But what just happened, I find to be a massive red flag, and I think this needs to be looked into. So I'm going to start right here on part 3 of the Brandon Tatum interviews. Then I'll show you the other stuff that I wanted to show you anyway. If you like this type of content, if you like my video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that fun shit, comment, whatever. Let me show you this really, really quick. Let me back up.
So
listen.
And so you guys get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah.
And then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, Nolan was, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
Last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
Write that down, guys.
Critically important information. Listen to what he just said, because he said the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Now, let me show you where he said that they were towing the boats out. Watch this. All right, right here, he's talking about when his buddy Bart pulls out his buddy Wyatt's boat. So Bart is on one boat, and he's pulling out Wyatt's boat. Wyatt's boat is the one that you've heard about was taking on water and sinking, and that's why they had to leave Horn Island. I want you to pay attention to this.
To where we're out of all this, all this chaos, because we left at 4:30, and there was still.
We left at 4:30. We left at 4:30. This guy just said that the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Very specific time. Now, how did he know it was 3 o'clock? Brandon Tatum didn't ask him that. If this was an interrogation, that's a key question I would ask. How do you know it was 3 o'clock?
Right.
He said he saw Nolan. Watch. Let me show you. Watch. Hang on. Watch.
And then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, Nolan was, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
And Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie. Katie.
That's Katie McCormick that he's talking about. And she has not made a public statement to my knowledge. I looked to make sure I didn't miss anything.
$1 million when she does.
She has said that the information that she was with Nolan and Nolan chose to stay behind with her is inaccurate. She denies that information. So it's important to note that. Outside of analyzing what he's saying, it's important to note that Katie McCormick said that's not.
Lanier, it says that your connection didn't come through. I see that you're trying to join the panel. Oh, you're there. Okay, let's keep going.
Not true, but let's listen. This is at 3 o'clock. This happened at 3 o'clock.
And Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, "Dude, you
see Brandon Tatum like just a boy hugging up on the girl. It's just what boys do. He wants to create this mood that he's just laughing because it's just.
And one thing that was also odd is Warren knew Katie's name, so why is he saying that girl? Why isn't he just saying Katie's name? That doesn't make sense to me either. Let's keep going. You guys, welcome Lanier to the stage. Salute.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. So let's get back into it. Then we're going to talk about it, okay?
Some teenagers trying to pick up a girl. That's the mood. Tatum, this whole thing's scripted by Tatum and the family.
Crazy. I was like.
In my opinion, that's the opinion I've drawn from this.
Just joking with him. And, but anyway, Nolan, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving.
When we were leaving, so it would be 4:30 because he's already said we were leaving at 4:30. So he says he saw Nolan at 3 o'clock, cradling this girl in his arms, shaking his head or something. I couldn't see. They didn't show Warren on camera when he said he was shaking his head. And he said, "Oh, you crazy, bro." And then he says at 4:30 when they're leaving, this happened.
Obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times.
But anyway, I'll talk about it.
It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat.
Nolan was sitting by the boat. How do you know, Warren, that Nolan was sitting by the boat? The last time you laid eyes on him was at 3 o'clock. It's now 4:30. This is your timeline. As I told you guys in the first part of this, building a timeline on the day of an event that's in question is the most important thing you can do when investigating / interrogating that event. Timeline is everything. At this part of the story, he's at 4:30. But he just said less than a minute ago, 2 minutes ago, that the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock.
With that Katie girl, and
now he's telling you he was still with Katie. So Warren here is saying that Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl. Listen again without me interrupting.
Out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. You know, it's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl. And
how do you know that? The last time you laid eyes, your exact words, on him was 3 o'clock. You're now talking about 4:30. Now listen what happens next.
My buddy yelled for Nolan. Nolan, get on the boat. We're leaving.
Now, in the interest of like honest analysis here, if they were both on the boat and he heard his buddy yelling at Nolan, not him, by the way. Warren wasn't yelling at Nolan. Even in his own story, he wasn't looking for Nolan or yelling for Nolan. And in the beginning of part 1 of the interview, he says, Nolan was like a brother to me. He was my best friend. More than a friend, though. He was like a brother to me. But Warren's not the one looking for Nolan, not the one yelling for Nolan. He don't even go over and lay eyes on him again, according to his own story that he's telling us. But he hears his buddy saying, hey, Nolan. So I do believe he could hear somebody screaming for Nolan and assume that Nolan is there. And so he might say, in response to my question here, if 3 o'clock was the last time you laid eyes on Nolan, how do you know he was sitting by the boat with Katie McCormick right now at 4:30? And he might say, well, I heard the conversation he had with my buddy Wyatt. That still don't fly with me. I got questions.
The boat's having issues. And no, he didn't say that, but he was panicking. Nolan, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolan said, no, I'm staying out here. I'm going to ride in with somebody else. And it's not uncommon to hear.
But notice he didn't say Nolan said, I'm going to stay here with Katie who I'm sitting with next to the boat. No part of that exchange would have given Warren the details to know that Nolan was sitting by the boat with Katie, which was his exact words. So in the exchange that he says he heard from Wyatt and Nolan, Wyatt said, get the fuck on the boat, get the fuck on the boat. Nolan said, no, I'm staying here. I'll ride back with somebody else. And he says that's common. I believe him. I believe that's common. I believe that anybody could have stayed behind and rode back with somebody else. Sure. But I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But what I want to focus on is he said the last time he saw Nolan was at 3 o'clock. And now he's telling you that Bart was pulling the boat out at 4:30 and that Wyatt yells to Nolan at 4:30. And then he tells you.
That is a good question. How did you last see Nolan at 3 o'clock p.m. and then turn around and say that Wyatt was yelling at Nolan to get on the boat?
Get on the boat. That he didn't see.
Right. So wouldn't you see Nolan at 4:30?
Yeah.
That don't make sense. Let's keep going, guys.
And Nolan was sitting by the boat with Katie McCormick at 4:30. How can he know that if he wasn't looking at him himself? He contradicted himself. That's blatant deception. It needs to be immediately exploited and interrogated.
But it's not like my buddy asked him one time. My buddy asked Nolan multiple times to get on.
So your buddy asked Nolan multiple times, and you never did. Your brother, your best friend.
Right.
On the boat. Nolan, get on the boat. Get on the boat. We're leaving. If you're coming, you got to come now. And Nolan made a decision to stay out on the island. And like he said,
how many people heard that? Were there just,
at least
just
5 everyone that was on our boat right there, because the Palm Beach had already.
This is bullshit, right? So first of all, Brandon Tatum once again is asking a dishonest question. How many people heard that? Under what circumstances could Warren know How many people heard that? Did he go around and do a survey on the boat? Hey, did you hear that exchange between Wyatt and Nolan? Yes or no? Did you? What about you? Matter of fact, let's just do it this way. Raise your hand if you heard the exchange. He don't fucking know. This is just a way to add indirect veracity to his statement and give the illusion of verified information.
Left. My buddy went ahead and went home on the Palm Beach, and three guys on the way back. And Nolan wasn't the only person to ride out there with us and in with somebody else. I mean, we had multiple people in our group that rode out with us and rode in on someone else's boat. And that, like I said, that's not an uncommon thing to do. You know, I mean, a lot of people do that. I could name probably 50 people out there that day that ran out with somebody and ran back in with somebody else. So, I mean, it's not like it's an uncommon thing, but
that's not the point.
It's not like we just left him there, or my friends just left him there. Nolan made a decision to stay on the island after my friends asked him multiple times and told him to give.
My friends asked him, listen, the more this guy talks, the more it confirms to me in my heart that he has misrepresented his relationship with Nolan. Point fucking blank, period. If his friends, who he says my friends asked him, once again, it shows me that it's an associative relationship. My friends asked him multiple times, you're his best friend. If everybody's basically begging Nolan, get on the boat, go back with us, bro. Don't stay behind, bro. Come on, bro. It's what it sounds like. He's making the story sound like they're being asked multiple times, over and over and over and over. We don't want to leave nobody behind. Why didn't you go try to convince him? Why didn't you have a conversation with him? What'd you do? Just sit on the boat and heard everybody arguing Nolan? I was like, fuck it, not my problem. Is that what you were doing? Because that's exactly what the fuck it sounds like
on the
you were
boat,
doing.
and he decided to stay.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody that she heard people yelling
correct
for Nolan to get on it. Is that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, you know, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said,
my buddy,
this is the last time I saw him, you know, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat. And she was right there to see that Nolan decided not to.
Yeah.
Did y'all catch that? Because I caught that.
So the last time that she saw him was the last time he saw him.
Anytime you're hearing he said that.
That's funny.
You got something to say?
Yeah, the last time that she saw him was also the last time that he saw him.
Right.
He say 3 o'clock, but then he say that, okay, you know, she
that's
was one of the people
contradictory.
who heard Nolan being, I guess, ordered to get on the boat by a good friend, not a distant friend or whatever. Very, very interesting.
Very interesting. What was you saying, Lanier?
For argument's sake, now, because I'm, you know, I just want them people to miss me with the BS. If you last saw Nolan at 3, but then you about to leave at 4:30, where does Katie come into play? Because if anybody remember the initial statement that Katie gave was she got on the boat because her sister and fiance came to get her to take her back home. So why would Nolan sit around and be on the island by himself if that girl already done left?
Who's her fiance?
No, her sister's fiance.
Yeah, her sister Macy.
Oh, okay.
Also, so why didn't Katie leave with the people that she came with? Did Katie actually come with the 3 boats? Did she actually come with the boys? Because why did they have to come and get Katie? Nobody's ever asked that question or answered that question. What was the reason that she had to get her sister and her brother-in-law to come and get her? Who did she ride with initially?
Exactly. So now that goes back to say you demanded him to get on a boat, but he was so decisive and staying. It doesn't make sense if the last time you saw him was at 3, but then y'all leaving at 4:30. That's a whole hour and a half.
Yep.
So you're arguing with this man for a whole hour and a half to get on a boat, but he want to stay with a girl, which the girl said the last time she saw him is. So that means they wasn't in the company of each other when they was telling him to get on the boat because she was about to leave. Nope. So what purpose was for him to stay on that island?
He didn't.
And then this is another factor that I don't think that people really caught. Remember when they said that someone called Nolan's mother around 11 and said that Nolan was missing?
Warren. Yep.
Okay, now have you heard from Nolan? How would it be possible for her to hear from Nolan if he doesn't have his phone? Because you knew he didn't have his phone.
Correct. Correct.
So now it takes from 11 o'clock all the way to the next morning for them to get out there to look for him, which he wasn't nowhere. Go ahead.
But didn't the GPS show that they returned around 7 p.m.?
It was 7:30 something, but there's still 73 minutes missing.
Gotcha.
An hour and 13 minutes missing because the sun set at Horn Island at 8 o'clock. So that means after they made their return trip once, then they left out, and then they came back to the dock, and then they went to the original dock, and then they came back to Fort Bayou. That gives them enough time at the western tip of Horn Island to either dump him out there or somebody had a smaller craft and took him out there.
Yep, allegedly. Good points. Great points. Awesome. So let's keep going, guys, okay? Let's get into it. Great point, Lanier. Thank you so much.
No problem.
She said, take that with the biggest grain of salt. But he said, she said, the last time that she saw Nolan was when everybody was yelling at him to get on the boat. He just contradicted his own fucking statement a minute ago that Nolan said, I'm standing here with her. Well, if that's the last time that she said she was with him, then they didn't stay together. And let's go back to this previous thing that he keeps bringing up over and over and over again. That it's so common for people to come to the island with one person and leave with another. I believe that. Why did Nolan not leave with anybody? Why are there no witnesses from 4:30 through the rest of the day that Nolan was still on the island? This entire time that they've been talking, Brandon Tatum has made a point to talk about how many people were there. Thousands of people, boats as far as the eye can see, if you remember from part 1. In fact, I'm going to show you part 2 real quick, where Tatum and Warren go to the island and they make this big to-do about how many people are on the fucking island. I'm not going to watch the entire part 2 with you because the majority of part 2 is Brandon Tatum 100% scripting this shit out to try to spin a fucking narrative, but I'm going to show you a couple highlights from it. But one thing you're going to notice is how they talk about how many fucking people were there and how common it is for people to ride back with other people. Then why did nobody see Nolan, and why did Nolan ask nobody for a ride?
Right.
If you're telling me that Nolan was beside the boat at 4:30, Wyatt was yelling for him, all your friends were yelling for him, not you though. You weren't yelling for him, your best friend, your brother. But and the lady, and Katie, you're telling me that Katie sent a text message saying that she saw him beside the boat for the last time when Wyatt was yelling for him. Then it sounds like to me the last known location is Nolan in the water by your boat as you're about to be towed off by barge. That's what I take away from this, and I find that to be extremely important and, if not damning, information. Let me take you to part 2 real quick. Okay, this is part 2 of the Brandon Tatum interview with Warren Hudson. What he does is he goes out to Horn Island with Warren Hudson to show you that everybody got it wrong, that it wasn't just 4 people and Nolan Wells out on the boat and they just left him behind on an island. That might have been something somebody said early on when this case first broke, but it's been pretty common knowledge since the case broke that this was an island with a bunch of people on it on the 4th of July. So this entire thing by Brandon Tatum to debunk this theory that they just went to an abandoned island with 5 people and left him behind, nobody was really saying that, and it does nothing to help solve this case. It does nothing to bring anything to light, because the prevailing theory at work here is that Nolan was left behind by the people that he went out with and then was never seen again. That's the prevailing theory. So for Brandon Tatum to spend all this time trying to debunk a theory that's not the prevailing theory, that's not what everybody thinks, it proves that this is just a scripted show for him. people are currently accusing him of exploiting this story and doing this whole big thing and getting these exclusive interviews just for the attention. And this helps their case because you're trying to debunk a theory that nobody's living. Nobody's saying that. They're saying, hey, there was thousands of people on the island. Why did nobody see him? There was thousands of people there. What happened after they left? That's what they're saying. But he does nothing to address that. He does everything to address this theory that there was a bunch of people that they left him on the island. Listen to what he said, Rick. Just listen to the words he says.
But on 4th of July, this is a celebration. And so this wasn't a small place where 4 boys took their black friend and dropped him off and never seen him again. This was flooded with people.
And that's the point, Brandon Tatum. That's the fucking point. He spends, what part of the video is this? This is the 3-minute, 48-second mark. From the beginning of the video till now, he spent 3 minutes and 48 seconds debunking this theory that they just went out on a boat and left Nolan out there, that's not the prevailing theory. So you're not actually doing anything to try to help solve the case. You're just, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. And watch this. Let me show you something else. Look at the beginning. This is the beginning of the video. Let me show you something. This is very telling too. Watch this.
People you'll see on the video is getting onto the boat.
Look at that video he's showing right now. He's showing you the point of this video. If you want to go watch the whole thing yourself, I don't recommend it. It's not worth it. But he's showing a bunch of people getting on multiple boats. He says, see, it wasn't just one boat with 4 or 5 guys who drove out with their black friend. It's multiple boats and a bunch of people. And look at this video. Guys, I want you to look at the video. The video is clearly a home security camera from an upper vantage point overlooking where the boats were loaded. According to what Warren said in the first part of this interview, this was somebody's grandfather's house. I believe he said Wyatt's grandfather. I'm pretty sure it was Wyatt's
the grandfather that called the captain.
So that means the only way that Brandon Tatum has this video to show you is if he got it from Wyatt's grandfather. That means that, as I predicted in part 1 of me doing this, that this entire thing, having the interview, doing the whole thing, was a joint operation between Brandon Tatum and the family. That proves my theory correct, that they are working together. Otherwise, how would he have this camera? In fact, they let Brandon Tatum go on top of their house to spin this narrative that nobody's even using.
And they took 3 boats out. It wasn't just one. It wasn't just Nolan and 3 and 4 boys. It was a multitude of people.
Before you ever did this interview, Brandon Tatum, people knew that.
On several different boats. And some of the boys that they're accusing wasn't even on the boat that Nolan was on. But let me show you from the vantage point where I have the video to prove that I'm here where I say I am.
See, now he's going to go up their house.
So right now,
he's on
here's
top
the angle.
He's literally on top of their house. So, like, my whole point here is that he is quite literally working with the family to script this whole thing. So if you ask why the hell would the judge let her son go on this show and do this interview? Because I guarantee mom's there. She's the judge. Warren's mom is the judge. I guarantee there's probably an attorney there. And I guarantee the judge and the attorney were there during the editing process too to decide what goes on and what doesn't. But now let me show you in part 2 where he talks to Hudson. Where he talks to Warren Hudson. Let me show you something. I'm pointing a couple things out during this conversation. They're on Horn Island. And he's asking them, what's the truth about
sure. And nobody knows what happened. Nobody could have seen what happened but the boys. It's a flat out lie.
Nobody said that. That's the whole point, Brandon Tatum.
Is there anything that you want to say, you want people to know about this whole experience?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's not from here, it's kind of hard to understand, where the island drops off and how the island works. But, there's plenty of people out here, especially on the 4th of July, this is where people come out to celebrate. And I mean, if you fill the water, you can see right here, Brandon, where it drops off. I mean, you can see literally where it drops off. So, I mean, it goes from about waist deep water right.
You can see it right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse on the screen? But just below the horizon, you see where the water turns from like blue to this dark brown green.
That's what they were.
That's the drop off he's talking about. You can see the water's probably waist deep until there, then it drops off.
There to neck deep.
And that's important.
And then it drops from neck deep all the way to like 17, 20 foot. I mean,
if you remember in part one, again, if you haven't watched part one, go watch it. The video, a couple videos before this one, he talks about how when they parked their boat, I believe he said at the bow it was neck deep and at the stern it was waist deep, which means they were probably parked somewhere around that drop off. That's important. It's important because he mentioned it in the first interview almost without asking. Right here in this interview, Officer Tatum says, hey, is there anything you would like people to know? Which means it was a planned question. They planned it off camera. He said, I'm going to ask you this and you talk about this. The judge, the mom judge, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, has, hey, we got to point this out. We got to point out that there's a drop off here. Point out the water depth. Point out how it goes from waist deep to neck deep. I'm going to tell you why that's important because I have a theory. But I feel like that they're scripting this just so we can get that information out in front of everybody.
We weren't even a quarter mile out the island, and when we were leaving, and I mean, it was 30 foot of water.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're walking towards the east right now, but if you walk down to the west, that's where the west tip of the island is, and that's where the current picks up very, very.
When he talks about the current's very bad. And the northwest is, I'm going to show you exactly where they were located. This right here is a screenshot I took on my own computer from Google Earth. If you listen to the CETO call where they called saying, hey, we're taking on water, we're sinking, here's our coordinates. I punched those coordinates into Google Earth, and this is exactly where their boat was when they made that call. And according to the caller, which I believe the caller was Wyatt, the water was 31 foot deep at that moment. I used Google Earth to tell me how deep the water was. When I put this in, it said 25 foot. Doesn't mean that the caller was wrong. Water levels change with tide. So when Google Earth took this shot, the water might have been 25 feet there. But when they were on it that day, it could have been 31 feet. But to me, it verifies that, where their boat was located at that time was about 30 foot of water. That's important because I have a theory.
Very bad.
People talk about the phone situation. I want to, because the way you articulate it, I just walked in the water with my pants. I mean, they're wet. And you can tell right away that if you're hanging out in the water, it doesn't appear, in my opinion, that you would have your phone on you. Is that typical for people to have their phones or?
No, I mean.
So I'm not going to listen to this. Listening to him is boring because it's the same shit you're going to hear in a second from the other part of the interview. Yes, we understand that if people are out in the water, they're not going to have their phone on them. And Brandon Tatum is trying to debunk the thing where everybody's talking about, because the parents brought up, we had to go get his phone from his friends. And so everybody's asking, why wouldn't Nolan have his phone? Brandon Tatum's trying to pretend like, well, nobody has their phone if you're out playing in the water. The question is, if Nolan Wells told his friends, I'm going to stay behind, y'all go without me, then even his parents believe he would have taken his phone off the boat so that way he has a way to communicate if need be. Doesn't mean that everybody's in the water playing with their phones. We get that. But he probably would have got his phone from you before you took off with the boat. Absolutely. What everybody's saying, to include his parents, is they don't believe Nolan would stay behind on the island without his friends and not get his phone back from them. So once again, Brandon Tatum is trying to debunk something that nobody's fucking saying. You're not doing anything to help try and resolve this matter. You are, in fact, making it worse, in my opinion. But now I'm going to show you something during this conversation they have. Brandon Tatum brings up Nolan Wells. I want you to watch what Warren does. This is, in my opinion, worth watching. This is the part I want you to really focus on because he brings up Nolan.
It's where people want to come out, hang out with their family and friends. And
people, first of all, notice that cut. If you rewind this video 2 seconds, and you'll notice that there's a cut between the conversation they were having and this conversation that just started. In fact, I'll just show you myself because I need you to hear his question anyway. But there's a cut, which means one of two things. They had a conversation about what they're going to have a conversation about so they can make sure it's clear, which means they prep the conversation. That's a theory. I don't know what happened. It could mean that somebody interrupted them filming and they had to cut it out. Could have been that Warren said too much stuff and they were like, I just cut that off. He went too long. It could be innocent editing, but it's worth noting the editing right before they bring up Nolan. This happens in part one too. If you go back and watch my part one, there's a couple different edit cuts. I noticed that happened right around when they talk about Nolan. It happened again here. But watch.
Hang out with their family and friends.
And people say that you guys just left Nolan behind. I've seen reports of people saying that you just left him. I see reports of people saying that you asked him to get on the boat. You told him to get on the boat. He didn't. What's the truth in that?
Well, Wyatt was having boat issues and the bilge wouldn't pump. So the bilge is basically a pump.
Notice his breathing gets really heavy. You can hear him in his speech. And it could just be nervous. It could just be nervous because he's talking about Nolan and this is a big case and it makes him nervous. He's only 18. It could be innocent, but it's worth noting is what I'm saying. It's worth noticing.
That releases water from your boat when water comes in. So I opened the back hatch and there's water up to the batteries. And that is obviously not good. There's water almost coming over the transom, which is where your motors sit and which is the, by the stern, like in the back part of the boat. So.
Did you see that? It stood out to me. It's almost like a nervous twitch. He pulls his shirt up. He's just so nervous talking about it.
Obviously, we were in emergency. The boat.
Breathing, still getting.
We're trying to save the boat.
And stuttering.
There was a cut there. He's right in the middle of telling you the story about the most important time, which is what happened to Nolan when you guys were leaving. And there's another cut. There's another edit right in the middle.
Didn't ask Nolan or we just left Nolan. Nolan decided to stay on the island with the girl that he was with. And the girl is a witness to that too.
Yeah. The girl's not witness to that.
She's not.
That's a lie. Because you just say, by the way, the part I just showed you a minute ago is part 3. So it happened after this. So they went out to the island and then they came back and did the interview. So in the interview, which happens after this, you say that she says in text, that's the last time she saw Nolan. So she's not witness to that. That's a lie. According to your own statement, that's a lie.
Yep.
Listen, I could do more of the part 3 interview and break down more of his language and show you more of his stuff. But in my opinion, what I've just shown you here and what I showed you in part 1 is the most important bulk of this information. What I gather from what I've shown you here, what I gather is a couple things. Number one, I do not believe that Warren has the best friend like brother relationship that he represented himself to have with Nolan Wells. I believe that's a misrepresentation. And anytime you misrepresent your relationship with somebody, that's deceptive, needs to be exploited. Number 2, he contradicts himself multiple times when the timeline of the last time you seen Nolan, where was Nolan when you left, he contradicts himself over and over. He says he saw Nolan last physically at 3 o'clock. Then he goes on to say that at 4:30, when Bart was about to tow them, Nolan was sitting by the boat with the girl. Number one, he said the water was waist deep by the boat, so I feel like you can't sit in it, but it could just be a figure of speech, so I'll let that one go. But how do you know that Nolan was beside the boat with the girl when you didn't see him because you said the last time you saw him was 3 o'clock? He also says that multiple friends said, come on, Nolan, come on, Nolan, come on, Nolan. And Nolan said, no, I'm going to stay behind. I'm going to stay behind. Even though in all of that, Warren himself didn't go try to persuade Nolan, who's his best friend, like a brother. Find that to be problematic. The girl, Katie, by his own admission, texted him and said, last time I saw Nolan was when you guys were leaving and yelling at him to get on the boat. I have a theory, and here it is. I'm basing this off of what I gathered from reading between the lines in these interviews, as well as all the publicly available evidence that is out there from what I've seen. This is my theory. So this is Horn Island Northwest Inn, and nobody's disputing that. That's where they were at on July the 4th. This is where the boat was parked, and then it got towed out to about right here. This is where the coordinates that I showed you earlier on Google Earth, this is where the coordinates put them when they made the sea tow call. According to Katie, last time she saw Nolan was right here beside the boat at 4:30. According to Warren, last time that he saw Nolan was beside the boat, even though he said the last time he saw him was 3 o'clock, he said at 4:30 when they were about to be towed by Bart, that Nolan was beside the boat with Katie, and Katie said it's the last time she saw him too. And Warren says Wyatt's the one that was screaming, Nolan, get the fuck on the boat, Nolan, get the fuck on the boat. So I would assume that Wyatt will confirm Nolan was right here as well. And multiple times throughout part 1, part 2, and part 3 of that interview with Brandon Tatum, Warren brought up how the water will be waist deep, then drop off, and then it'll be about neck deep, then drop off, and then it'll be too deep. He brought up multiple times how the water gradually gets deeper and has sudden drop offs. So this is my theory.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys are on the boat. They find out the boat's taking water and they panic. This is granddaddy's boat. Can't let the boat sink. We'll be in trouble. My granddaddy will kill me. Let's get this thing out of here. They have a discussion. Hey, there's too many people on the boat. That's why it's taking water. Bart, the other friend, says, hey, if we tow it out away from the shore a little bit and get it into some deeper water, it may get that water that's on top of the bilge pump out of the way, and we can pump the water out and it'll be good. There is GPS data that shows this boat was in fact towed for a distance and then regained normal operations. So that's probably what happened. They towed it out a little bit, it got the water pumped out, and was able to resume normal operations and drive the boat back to shore. While everybody's trying to figure out what to do with the boat, Wyatt, it sounds like, or some other people were like, hey, everybody get on the boat, everybody get on the boat. Who came with us? Nolan was out there by the boat. Hey, Nolan, come on. We're taking on water. We get the fuck out of here. And so they start panicking and tell Bart, just pull us. I think Nolan starts moving towards the boat starts moving away from him. By the time he realizes the boat's moving away from him, everybody said the current here at the northwest part of the island is very bad riptide current. I think at some point he couldn't get to the boat and he was too far out to turn around and too far away from the boat to catch up with the boat. And I think the riptide got him. It could be they didn't see him, they didn't hear him, whatever. I don't know. This is a theory I have. I'm not trying to say anybody's guilty of anything, because it could have been they were panicking and towing the boat out and he was trying to catch up with the boat and there was a miscommunication because they're not very responsible people and they've been drinking alcohol. It could be any number of things. But let me tell you why, if I have this theory, why I feel comfortable saying this theory. Because when I listen to you speak in these interviews, your information doesn't match each other. Last time I saw him was at 3:00, and then at 4:30 he was beside the boat. Well, that you contradicted each other. He said he was staying with Katie. Katie said he didn't stay with Katie. Katie said he didn't say he was going to stay with Katie. I think they're banking on maybe he said that at some point and somebody overheard it and they can use that. See, they heard him say it. I think they know he was going to get back on the boat and did not make sure he got back on the boat. And then in the panic to get the boat out of there, something along the line happened to Nolan. Did Nolan try to get on the boat and get hit with the rudder? I don't know. I haven't heard anything from the autopsy that would suggest that, so I can't believe that's what happened. Did Nolan try to get on the boat and get bumped or knocked off? I don't know. But what I do know is that this family deserves the answers, and that after 4:30 p.m., everybody saw him beside the boat, but then nobody saw him again on the island. And you just got finished telling us that thousands of people were there on the island because on July 4th, everybody's on Horn Island. That's what you said. So why did nobody see him after 4:30? Also, why did he not ask somebody for a ride? In this interview, Warren said it's very
his theory is plausible, right? It's plausible. That could be it. But it doesn't explain the CTO call. It doesn't explain the Nolan.
Right.
Is he dead?
Right.
Nolan, don't die.
Right.
I'm a discredit.
I think that he's still beholden. He's still beholden to a certain kind of white accountability. Okay. He can't just outright call it what it is. The thing is, those holes right there stick out more than anything. If he drowned, if it was an accident, there would be no need to cover anything.
Right.
So the fact that you got all this evasiveness, if he is primarily culpable for his own death, then there you go. All right, say it, let that be known. But that's not. We're getting the runaround.
No, we are. If he had drowned, if he had got caught in the rip current, he would have had some water in his lungs, right? They would have told us a long time ago that the cause of death is drowning. They would have said that a long time ago, right? It wouldn't be a secret what was in the autopsy, right? It wouldn't be a secret. They would come out and say it. We still got to send it to the grand jury to see if there's any foul play, accident, blah, blah, blah. However, this is what the autopsy showed, right? So I don't particularly believe he got caught in a rip current. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen either, because I don't know what happened. We don't know as a fact what happened. We have our ideas based off history.
I'm gonna make a cultural assessment. I'm gonna definitely make that. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that is what should fly anyway. The fact that again, if this was reversed and you had this happen at the inkwell with a whole bunch of well-to-do black people, thousands, about 1,000 people out there, well-to-do, and one pilgrim end up dead, nobody know what happened. You are not going to get the system to back up those black people like that, just right off the bat.
They would have been arrested the same day.
There's not going to be any element to cover up. You're not going to cover up. They're going to scour everything that they need to right there. Names are going to be put out. It's going to be blasted all over the media, you know what I'm saying, mainstream media. Let's keep this 100. So I hold my cultural assessment and judgment as absolute in the same way that they would. If they can play around with people's lives, I can make sure that I don't you know what I'm saying, have our lives played with. Gotcha. And make the absolute assessment. I'm ready for finality anyway. Shit. I'm tired of all this ambiguity behind this.
Thank
my
you so
thing
much.
is my thing is when they discovered his body, there's no way possible I believe he got hit by a rotor, because it would have been some type of damage besides, bruises or whatever. It would have been, he would have been cut or some kind of way from a rudder.
Right.
So there wasn't no physical damage to his body, only drowning. Because if we do remember what the park ranger said, when he said Nolan, he noticed something. Something wasn't right with the body.
Well, first of all, it wasn't waterlogged, so it wasn't bloated, and that does not line up with the drowning. Second of all, there was something not physical, visible to the physical eye just by looking. But remember, the independent autopsy noted redness
the back of his neck.
Right. So there was something. We just don't know what it is yet, because everything is a secret.
And then you notice something too. When they made the call, right? Where did they make the call from? The northwest tip of the island, right?
Where he was found.
Okay, now if he was found on the northwest tip of the island, now see that's why I said I want them to miss me with the bullshit. If you was parked on the northwest part of the island and you drowned on the northwest part of the island and the currents were so strong, wouldn't it would have took you further out?
I don't actually know currents. Maybe Brother Rogich can help you with that, because I don't know how none of that works.
It's just like if it's raining and the wind is blowing towards the east and it's raining from the west, it's going to push the water to the east. I mean, it's going to push the wind is going to push it to the east. So as it's going and more water come, it's going to constantly keep pushing it and pushing it till it goes further east until it stops. With him weighing 100 and maybe 83 pounds as a receiver or a safety, his body is heavy enough, and the currents and the water is strong enough to push him further out away from the tip of the island instead of pushing him back on the shore.
Yeah, because to push him for him to be pushed, like I said, depending on how the winds were blowing and how the waves were flowing, he will be pushed further out into open water.
Yep.
The thing again, it don't look like he drowned. Areas where people would sustain potential lethal damage was taken from him. His throat, back of the head.
All suspect.
You got the phone call. You got the different voices all saying something in alarm. We all hear it. So the thing is, it's all suspect. If anything, we're gonna find out exactly what happened. Now, yeah, they definitely killed him. What we're gonna do is find out how. That's what we're gonna do. Not if they killed him or not. No, we should already know it. This is way too suspect for us not to make assumptions that reality is showing us that we're supposed to make. You ain't got to be no damn police officer. You ain't got to be no investigative reporter. We're still human. We know humans.
Yeah.
We know human behavior.
We
we
know
can
hate.
still, we can
And
still, we can still read. We can still read vibes and energy. Get out of here. You know, it's not just only their specialists that can read a human.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and it matches up. I'm gonna tell you, this matches up with a certain celebrity passing in the same fashion that they said he drowned. Is it, like I was telling y'all, I'm a moderator on another panel, and we're looking into a certain case, and it's almost the same exact situation.
Who was a celebrity? If I may ask?
Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Oh yeah.
We're right now we've been on that ever since it happened, and we didn't cracked it. We cracked it.
You cracked it.
We cracked it because at the end of the day, I'm just gonna give you a little tidbit on it.
Okay.
First, he was supposed to be found on the surface of the beach in Costa Rica, right?
Right.
But then reports say he was found brushed up against the coral. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
And a famous show that always get to jump on everybody's story broke the case like they trying to break on Nolan Wells. Put it out there before they even had the information and got it wrong.
Wow.
But yeah.
Rest in peace to Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Yeah.
That was a shock
Angie
to the
Beasto.
world. And Angie, yeah. That was a shock.
We on that case too. We didn't the panel that I'm on. This man then traveled to all the places that these particular situations. There you go.
Paperwork. You talking about paperwork party?
Yep, paperwork. Because I didn't want to say it on your channel.
I don't have a problem with paperwork.
We started from Young Dolph all the way up to right now. We doing Malcolm. We doing Pimp C. We doing everybody's cases.
Gotcha.
And we on it. We on it. We found the missing links to people. I'm gonna put it like this. Do you know who Jackie O mother is?
No.
The girl, girl from Wild 'N Out.
I know who Jackie O is. I don't know who her mother is.
We found her mother.
Okay.
Did nobody know who her mother was? Nobody. We found her mother. Her mother is deceased now, but we found her mom. We found her other siblings.
Okay.
So when it comes down to, like I said, I try to think outside the box when stuff like this happens. And with Nolan Wells, it's too many discrepancies in these young men's stories. And Officer Coonbooger, he is looking for a political position somewhere.
No, he's gonna get it. He definitely gonna get it. He definitely gonna get it.
Because he stands on the wrong side. Because when he made that statement about Sandra Massey, you don't throw water on a police. How do you throw water at a police when she's dumping it out?
Right. He did try to justify that officer, the one that just got rejected, Sean Grayson, unaliving Sonia Massey. He literally got on the panel and on the news and on TV talking about she deserved to die, basically, because she had a pot of hot water.
And he premeditated. The police premeditated it, right? Because what did he say? I will shoot you in your head.
I shoot you in your face.
Yep.
And he did just that.
What did his family say?
Man, look at here. I right now, they looking at it as they don't think it's right that he went to jail for that because she was wrong. But at the end of the day, video don't lie.
Right.
No.
Why
That's what his family says. Okay.
Yeah. Why does video only work for certain people but don't work for certain other people?
Because they the ones who set it up to set up the surveillance. It's not set up for safety. It's set up for their control. It's set up for their dominance. It's set up for their gain. Right? Remember when these state-appointed mercenaries, y'all continue to call police, first started putting cameras on their squad cars and on their persons, then all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying, a black person ended up dead. Oh, and my camera just broke. The camera broke on the car and it broke on the person. So it's like, so the thing is, it's not. We are actually the issue. The fact that we receive them as they present themselves, the fact that we let them continue to call themselves police, and we don't perhaps maybe evolve that or devolve that. The same thing is dealing with these pilgrims. The fact that we don't set up our own cultural borders and lines of interacting with them, and you know what I'm saying, just for the sake of our overall preferred integrity. You know, because it's always seems like there's some kind of a slight that you have to avoid when interacting with them. There's some form of a marginalization that you have to avoid interacting with them.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from them folks as much as possible.
I mean, look how they did Carmelo. We can clearly see on the surveillance footage that those boys, those thugs, went directly to Carmelo, and we can see that they literally attacked him first. But he's in prison.
You know what? You said what I've been trying to tell people that's saying that he was wrong. My thing is, when we see the video way before them boys come up there, it wasn't nothing going on. They were sitting there talking, having a good time. Wasn't nothing going on. Then all of a sudden, the boys came up on the tent and went straight to him.
Straight to Carmelo.
My thing is, I believe someone under that tent either called them boys or text them boys, and they came.
Eddie, the so-called fake friend Eddie did it. I said it, and I'm not gonna. I'll say. I ain't saying allegedly. He did it.
And guess what? You know Eddie, and I'm just saying it as a joke. You know Eddie, and what's his name? Javon, the best friend of Carmelo, the black boy.
That's Eddie, right?
The one that Eddie is the one of Carmelo's supposed to be best friend. And who was the black boy that's supposed to be best friends with Nolan?
Oh, Javon.
Javon and Eddie, I believe they distant cousins because they want to keep their place in the token privileged circle. Because they turned that back on them. But the truth be told, is no way possible, because I still want to know if y'all remember he said he was going to get a ride with somebody else. Who was the somebody else he's supposed to be riding with?
Which one are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about Nolan, right?
Nolan.
Now, right?
Okay. Remember? Yep. Remember he said I'm catching the ride. I'm supposed to be catching the ride with somebody. Who was the person he's supposed to be? Can we confirm that he made plans to ride out with somebody else?
Right. No.
So it all goes back to you, wherever you left him at, or wherever y'all was at on the northwestern tip of the island. That's where he was found. That it's mathematically impossible for a person to get drowned and pop up in the same position.
Well, look, the thing is, if it's an accident, I want all of y'all in the chat to hear this. If it's an accident, people usually openly share exactly what happens with an accident. Usually it's a reflexive response to report an observed accident. Right. So all of this, Nolan could have, accident. It's like, all right, well, if that was the case, why were they so hesitant in the beginning? Usually people aren't hesitant to report an accident.
I agree 1,000%. I mean, you don't.
We got that far in the idiocracy where what I just said don't make sense, does it?
Listen,
shit.
There's no reason to cover up an accident, especially when you already have skin color privilege. You know what I mean? They're gonna believe whatever you say. If it was an accident, you're gonna come out and say it was an accident. There's no reason to go to this extreme and extent to cover up an accident, especially when you already got the privilege. You already got the upper hand.
Yeah, and then you lawyer up. It's like, wait a minute. If it was an accident, why would you lawyer up? Why wouldn't everybody be rushing to give their account with their good friend Nolan, their brother? Fuck.
Well, see, I was in a situation when I lived in North Carolina where some guys got to fighting in a little bar, right? And it got out of hand, and It moved outside, and then they got to tussling again, and the guy was like trying to push the guy off him so he could run. And when he pushed him up off of him, he pushed him, and he fell back and hit the back of his head on the bumper of a car.
Right.
Okay.
Boom, he was gone. He was gone.
Gene said he could have easily gone out of her door. He didn't have any business going into her house in the first place. It was premeditated. She's talking about Sonia Massey. It was premeditated, and I could clearly see that he was trying to escalate a situation that wasn't anything. She's right. She said, "Have a good night, sir. Thank you. I love y'all."
Be good, be safe.
To the house.
Mm-hmm.
He followed her in there. Right?
Yeah.
To me, he carried out a fetish he's had since probably he was a kid, a desire he wanted. Before he already knew he had a fatal disease. He already knew that he had cancer. So in my mind, in his mind, he's like, let me just do this so I can fulfill what I've been wanting to do, because I know I'm dying anyway.
But he's a coward. Why do they always go after black women or elders?
I don't know, y'all.
It's always black. It's always either black women or black seniors.
I agree. But guys, I've been on here for over 3 hours. You know what that means. That means we gotta go. It's after 10 o'clock, and I gotta get into bed. So I want to thank Lanier for being on the panel. I thank you, Rogish, for joining us again tonight. Everybody, thank our panel guests. And guys, we will meet back here tomorrow, same time, in between 7 and 8, probably like 7:15 or something like that. We'll meet back here tomorrow. I love y'all. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for everybody that came. Please hit the like button on the way out. And we are out of here. Meet us tomorrow. Justice for Nolan Wells. Truth Gang Anthem. Drop Truth Gang in the comments. Peace and love.
We stand on facts.
Salute. Thank you, everybody that was here. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notifications button.
On truth, no cap, no spin, no disguise. Nope. We see through every lie. We do pressure on every time. Crush Truth Gang, never fall in line. Never how to move out rumors, I verify first. If the story's shaky, I dissect every word. Cross-check facts, I don't play with assumptions. If it don't make sense, I'm pressing the button. Independent mind, I don't follow the crowd. If the truth get buried, I'm digging it out. They be talking loud, but they stand on nothing. I'm building a case while they building discussions. No bias in my lens, I don't lean left or right. If it's wrong, I'ma call it on sight. Every claim get tested, every angle reviewed. We don't chase opinions, we align with the proof. What's over on up, don't ride. No feelings in it, we won't prove. Standing 10 toes on the truth. Nope. We see through every lie. We do. Pressure on them every time. Pressure. Truth Gang, never fall in line. No shortcuts taken, we follow the trail. Even if it led somewhere people won't tell. I don't care who involved, I don't care who it hit. Truth don't pick sides, it expose what it is. Every detail matter, I'm zooming it in. From the start to the end, where the gaps where been. If the timeline off, then the story collapse. And I'm bringing it up, I ain't letting it pass. We don't fold under pressure, we apply it instead. They be hoping we stop, we apply it again. 10 toes planted, we ain't moving for nothing. Truth Gang solid, yeah, we stand on something. It don't matter where we go. It don't matter what it shows. We know.